Rebirth in India as a Brahmin. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 151, Winning the Heart. After listening to Kiseleova's confession, Shakru was very emotional and thought that if it didn't cost much, then he could help this girl. After all, she was only 18 years old and was still a high school student in her previous life. So she asked, "Then how can I help you?" Kiseleova hesitated for a moment, then whispered with a flushed face, "Actually, you did me a great favor just now by being able to choose me. Mr. Toktakanov told me before coming here, as long as I can to satisfy you and agree to be your lover for 5 years, he will be responsible for my competition opportunities and daily expenses. All the expenses are paid for by that Mr. Ibrahim, saying that this is a thank you gift to you." Then the voice became lower and lower. As long as Mr. Toktakanov asks about it tomorrow, you say just be very satisfied with me. Although I have no experience, I will definitely meet all your requirements. This answer surprised Shakru, because Russian girls are generally very precocious, so girls in Russia can get married at the age of 14, but Kiseleova is now 18 years old, and she has no experience. This is really rare. As for whether she is lying to herself, won't it be verified later? It seems that there is no repair technology for that layer of film in this era. Point after a night of romance, the specific content can only be put in the inner episode. Hey, why are the deaths in the inner episode getting more and more? It seems that this kind of plot must be controlled in the future. Shakru was very interested in coming to visit, and Toktakanov and Ibrahim, who made fun of themselves, expressed that they were very satisfied with Kiseleova and expressed their willingness to provide certain sponsorship to the Russian synchronized swimming team. They also privately gave Kiseleova a ticket before leaving. Invoice for $200,000. The reason why Shakru is so good to Kiseleova is that firstly, Kiseleova has been very comfortable with him these days, and secondly, she has inadvertently given him an inspiration, which has solved the problem of selecting materials for his new film that has been bothering him for many days. Solution. That was when two people were chatting on the bed. Kiseleova accidentally mentioned an interesting incident on the plane. A girl's suitcase suddenly fell open and 2 bras fell out. It is said that the Indians on the plane were so shocked that their eyes almost popped out. Shakru understood the reaction of these Indians very well, because India's traditional concepts are very conservative, but this scene reminded him of a similar plot in an Indian movie he had watched. After thinking about it carefully, Shakru finally remembered, isn't this the famous Win the Heart? The movie Win the Heart can be called a miracle in the history of Indian film. Not to mention how many awards this movie has won and how many people it has made famous. It only needs to be said that this movie has been shown in theaters for 15 years. For a long time, the total box office exceeded 12 billion rupees, which is enough to explain any problem. As soon as he thought of it, Shakru immediately got up from the bed and wrote down the general plot. Speaking of which, Shakru felt that he didn't have any golden fingers after time travel. That is, his memory became special good. No matter how many years have passed, or how small the memory is, as long as there is a clue and you slowly recall it, you can basically recall everything exactly. After returning to the company, Shakru immediately called Rajkumar over, pushed the draft of the script in his hand, and said cheerfully, "Come and take a look. This is the outline of the script written by your boss and me myself. How about it? It's a standard love musical." Rajkumar took it and looked at it carefully for about 10 minutes, then raised his head and said with some hesitation, "Boss, you are right that this is a song and dance romance film, but there are too many inharmonious parts in it." "What are the disharmony?" Shakru asked casually. "The scene at the beginning where the heroine dances in a bath towel and the heroine's bra falls out of the suitcase on the train is enough to pass the review, right?" Rajkumar said, scratching his head. In fact, it is no wonder that Rajkumar scratched his head, because Indian movies have extremely strict control in this regard. They were not even allowed to kiss, which was much harsher than the Chinese, who were not allowed to describe anything below the neck. However, Shakru was prepared for this, so he explained, does the regulation say that dancing in a bath towel or wearing a bra is not allowed? If not, it means that it can pass the review. Besides, the heroine in this story is an Indian girl who grew up in London. Naturally, she has to show that she is different from the traditional constraints that domestic girls have been subject to since childhood, and this is also for the sake of the future. The elopement plot is foreshadowed. Well, okay, what you said makes sense. But the theme of this story seems to reflect women's liberation and gender equality. Such a theme seems to be easy to cause controversy. Shakru nodded and said, of course it will cause controversy. If it is not controversial and discussion oriented, it is not our style. And don't you think that with this economic reform, more and more Indians, especially Indian girls, are beginning to expect to be able to achieve equal status between men and women and be able to control their own destiny like in the European and American world? So I believe that after this movie is released, the heroine will become the image that many girls long for in their hearts. In addition, since we have always insisted on absorbing the essence of Hollywood movies and maintaining overseas markets, this kind of correct Western thought should be vigorously promoted and introduced. This will not only enlighten the Chinese people, but also be more easily accepted by overseas audiences. Otherwise, if we follow the Bollywood way to shoot a conventional love musical, what is the characteristic of our North Star? Can we beat Bollywood, which has decades of experience in this regard? Boss, you are right. I also think that traditional ideas are too demanding on women. Moreover, this theme is not only for little girls who have accepted Western ideas, but even middle-aged and elderly women who have become accustomed to traditional ideas will look forward to the day when men and women are equal. Then I will go to the screenwriter to process this story. Rakuma agreed, and then asked, boss, who should be the male and female protagonists? This play requires very high acting skills from the actors. Do you have a suitable candidate? Shakru asked, Miss Aishwarya, who has been working with us recently, do you think it is suitable? Aishwarya, are you crazy? Let an MSL girl play a rebellious Hindu girl. Let alone whether Aishwarya will agree to it, the audience will criticize you to death. Chapter 152, Movie Family. Rajkumar smiled awkwardly and said, well, I didn't think about it. Boss, do you have a suitable candidate here? Shakru thought to himself, what other candidate could be more suitable than the original two actors? So Shakru pretended to ponder for a moment, and then said, the male protagonist is an MSL young man, so he must find an MSL actor to play the role. Well, I think the young man who won the film for Best Newcomer award last year is quite suitable. Yes, he has good acting skills, is somewhat famous, and his net worth is not too high. Rajkumar thought about it for a long time before he remembered this person and said, you are talking about the Shahrukh who played the role of seducing the widow's pretty boy, right? This reply made Shahrukh's head full of black threads. If Shahrukh's fans knew that someone dared to say this about their idol, the king of Bollywood and the 8-time winner of the Best Actor Shahrukh, one of the 3 great Khans of India, this result is really unimaginable. And couldn't he see that even his boss's name was derived from the word Shahrukh? Of course, it must be said that Shahrukh was still a newcomer at this time, and his passionate scene with the little widow and Iwana was indeed too impressive. Therefore, Shakru could only nod helplessly and said, yes, that's him. I think his acting skills are good. Go and get in touch with him and try to sign him. Okay, I will go find him tomorrow. Who will we choose as the heroine? Rajkumar continued to ask, Kajal, who plays Bhud. Shakru replied concisely, but she is also an MSL. Rajkumar asked in confusion, what? She is also an MSL? This answer really caught Shakru off guard. In fact, he didn't know much about Kajal. He only knew that her family background was very good and her husband was Ajay Devgn. I don't know about the rest. I originally thought that a Hindi girl who is unwilling to be bound by tradition can be portrayed so vividly, so she should be a Hindu girl. Unexpectedly, he is also MSL. Is the Indian film industry going to be dominated by MSL actors? Fortunately, Rajkumar came to his rescue at this time, but it doesn't matter to her. After all, she comes from a film family, through Rajkumar's introduction. Shakru learned what a film family is. Kajal's great-grandfather is the godfather director of Indian films, and his grandfather Sasada Mukherjee and his uncle are both prominent figures in Bollywood. Many of her parents, uncles, and cousins are also famous Bollywood stars. His father, Samu Mukherjee, is a director and producer. His mother, Tanuja Mukherjee, is an award-winning actor, and his aunt, Nutan, is a famous Indian film queen who still has won the 5 Years Award for Film and Television. Indian Film Audience Award's impressive record. Her grandmother Shabona Samash and great-grandmother Ratan Bey were also well-known Hindi film actors. Her cousins Joy Mukherjee and Eb Mukherjee are both film producers. This does not include her cousins Rani Mukherjee, Shabani Mukherjee, Monish Pearl and other actresses who later became famous. Therefore, in Rajkumar's view, even though Kajal's debut film Bakhudi was not very successful, it is absolutely worthwhile to have the opportunity to establish a relationship with Mukherjee, the oldest film family in India. What's more, growing up in such a family, as long as the talent is not too bad, the acting skills will definitely be good point. So the script was finalized, and while Rajkumar arranged for an editor to write the script, he began to contact Shahrukh and Kajal. It seems to be a coincidence that these two people just finished filming Love Scam. In fact, it was from this movie that Shahrukh and Kajal officially became popular. However, the movie had not been released at this time, so their price tags were not high point, although Rajkumar's previous impression of Shahrukh was just a boy seducing widows. His view immediately changed after meeting Shahrukh himself. In fact, among the 3 great actors in Indian movies, Shahrukh has the tallest and strongest image, which easily gives people a mature and stable feeling. This is in line with the fact that he has practiced fencing for many years and won the annual fencing championship in college. Related to experience. In fact, look at Shahrukh's resume. You would never guess that he would become a successful actor. Shahrukh Khan grew up in Nagar, a place name in Pakistan, and studied at Street Point Co MBA school. There he discovered his athletic, dramatic, and professional talents, as evidenced by his fencing championship. Afterwards, Shahrukh Khan entered Hansraj College, 1985 to 1988, and obtained a bachelor's degree in economics. Although, he later went on to pursue a master's degree in mass communications. But eventually he decided to give up and moved to Bollywood to start his acting career. Shahrukh readily agreed to Rajkumar's invitation, firstly because of the generous treatment offered by Polaris. To be honest, Rajkumar was a little surprised by the treatment. Is it appropriate to give such treatment to a newcomer? But Shahrukh knew that it was a bargain to sign Shahrukh with such treatment. On the other hand, Shahrukh liked the script very much and even felt that the script was about his own story because he himself was an MSL youth and his wife was a Hindu girl. It took a lot of twists and turns for them to get together and finally held their wedding in 1991. It took some twists and turns for Kajal to sign the contract because Kajal's grandfather Sasada Mukherjee did not like Polaris, a film company that he thought was unconventional and overly westernized. However, Kajal's father was very optimistic about the development of Polaris, and with Kajal's own wishes, it was finally passed at the family meeting point. While Rajkumar was busy signing contracts with actors, Shakru had a strange guest. In fact, since he became famous as a fortune teller, he has had almost no shortage of guests, but this guest still surprised him. PS. Some readers have suggested to me about the situation of Manipur, a small Chinese state in India, hoping that I can write about the relevant plot. To be honest, when I first found the information, I was also very excited, thinking that this was another otaku, which could be deduced. But after I carefully collected the information, I found that the situation in Manipur was different from that in Ryukyu, and the situation involved was more complicated. In addition, I didn't intend to involve too much politics in this book, so I planned to change the writing method. Chapter 153. Originally, Shakru thought it was a coincidence to meet a foreigner like Tok Takhanov who looked like a Chinese. Unexpectedly, he met such a guy again this time. On this day, as soon as he entered the office, his secretary Piliti came in and reported, "Boss, it seems that a Chinese is here to see you." Shakru was immediately amused by Priti's confused words. What does it mean to be Chinese? That means yes, and no means no. If you don't know, just ask him. Pretty, replied distressedly. I asked, and he said he was Indian, but no matter how I looked at it, I felt that he was similar to the Chinese people, who came here often. The Chinese people who came here were the leaders and family members of Changchun Pharmaceutical Factory. Although he didn't understand what Pretty wanted to express, Shakru still smiled and said, forget it, let him in, and I will personally screen to see if he is Chinese. Within a few minutes, Shakru saw a middle-aged man with yellow skin, black hair, and a suit and tie walking in. Although this guy looked very Chinese, Shakru could tell him at a glance. Definitely not Chinese, not even Japanese or Korean, so he joked, you must be Mr. Oram. It seems that my secretary is right, you really look like a Chinese. Oram smiled bitterly and replied, it doesn't matter, I'm used to this kind of misunderstanding. People often mistake me for a Chinese, but in fact I'm from Manipur. Upon hearing this reply, Shakru suddenly realized that this guy was from Manipur, so no wonder he looked so Chinese. Speaking of Shakru's previous life, although he knew the names of major cities in India such as New Delhi, Mumbai, Bangalore, and Kolkata, he still couldn't talk about the names of Indian states. So what he is most familiar with is this humble Manipur, because of several posts that went viral on the internet in 2014. Manipur, a new China in India. Manipur in India. Assam and Assam intend to break away from India and join China. The relationship between Manipur, the state with the most independent tendencies in India, and China, both are descendants of the dragon. Manipur's heart is towards China. Posts like this can still be searched on Baidu. At first, Shakru was also confused by the content in the post, and his heart for the Great China surged, especially the 6-star red flag displayed in the post, the Chinese restaurants everywhere, and the pirated copies of Chinese pop songs and film and television dramas. Dish stalls and dragons everywhere. The totems also include the beauties of Manipur, who are completely in line with the Chinese aesthetic point of view. This made Shakru, who was still a little impulsive at the time, almost shout, support the independence of Manipur. We cannot let the descendants of the dragon thousands of miles away feel chilled. Such an unreliable slogan. Wait until you cross over. Shakru really spent a lot of time and carefully researching Manipur, and found that the facts were not bad at all, and almost everything written in the post was deceptive. There is only a slender Siliguri corridor connecting the northeastern region of India, where Manipur is located, to the main body of the Indian subcontinent. The narrowest part is even only 20 kilometers. From this, it is conceivable that the connection between it and the main body of India is somewhat fragile. In fact, Manipur has always been an independent state with a history of 2000 years. It is in a similar situation to Nepal. It has nothing to do with India, and has never been occupied or ruled by India. Of course, it has never been occupied or ruled by China. After the British Army occupied India, they randomly found an excuse to annex Manipur. When the British Army withdrew from India, they also gave Manipur to their once most obedient younger brother India. So Manipur joined India in this way. It can be seen that it is strange that the relationship between Manipur and India is good. It is normal for him to disobey and be unwilling to be ruled by India. If the Indian government can win over the people of Manipur, well, perhaps there is still a possibility of integration, but the Indian government promulgated a very tough regulation in 1958. That is the Suppressive Law, or the Anti-Terrorism Law, AFSP, Armed Forces Special Powers Act Rep's private law. What is even more unfortunate is that Manipur was declared a riot area on September 8, 1980, and has since come under the control of the AFSP. There are several states that are under the control of AFSPPA, and the guys who tried to kidnap Shakru were also from the controlled areas. Why is it controlled? Let's go back to a very brave Naga. Naga, the water god who symbolizes security and prosperity in Indian mythology, and also means cobra, guerrilla group of independent movement. In short, the guerrillas of the Naga independence movement had a large force in Manipur to support the armed resistance of the Naga in their own state, the Nagaland independence movement. In addition, in 1949, The Manipur people resisted and joined India, so Manipur was controlled point under the control of AFSBA. From 1980 to 1990, important Manipur independence activists or anti-Indian activists were missing one after another, according to the USHRW report. And the frequent rapes by the Indian Army in Manipur caused extreme hatred among local women. According to incomplete statistics, as of 2008, more than 30,000 civilians have died in conflicts with the Indian Army. Under such circumstances, it is reasonable for Manipur to want to be independent from India. Point back to the connection with China. The Manipuris are indeed yellow, and their skin color and appearance are different from those of Indians. They do worship the dragon totem. Their language has nothing in common with the Indian language family, and belongs to the Sino-Tibetan language family. Their eating habits are not as spicy as those of Indians. But rice is the staple food, and they like light and easy to steam and cook, which is a bit similar to the taste of yunnan. But we cannot say that they are Chinese. In fact, it is more accurate to say that they are Burmese. Burmese and Burmese are not the same concept, especially in terms of the dragon totem. In fact, the Tibetan Burmese people worship the dragon totem far more than those in North China. You can see it by looking at the flag of Bhutan. As for why the Manipuri people did not refute this rumor, it may be because they themselves know that it is difficult to achieve independence by their own strength. It is better to use China's strength to put pressure on India, and perhaps there is still a glimmer of hope. Chapter 154 Rejection. In fact, similar remarks have been circulated around Manipur as early as 1990 and 1991. The reason may be as mentioned above. In fact, it may be the People's Liberation Army of Manipur, which is abbreviated as PLAP, translated as People the People's Liberation Army, NND. I'm really afraid that people won't misunderstand. I made it up. Plus ALTHOUGH Shakru had done some research on Manipur. This was the first time he saw Manipur people, so he asked with great interest, "Oh, that's right, that's no wonder. But sir, what do you want to see me for this time?" "Well, I heard that Mr. Pandit has very close ties with China, and has many powerful Chinese friends." Asked hesitantly. "I do know a few Chinese friends, and have some business contacts. But Mr. Oram, if you ask me this, don't you want to contact the Chinese government through me?" Shakru's words were purely joking. Let alone the people of Manipur have no such intention at all, and even if they did, they would not find an Indian to put the needle between them. After all, Manipur is less than 500 kilometers away from Yunnan. If you want to take the initiative to contact me, you have already contacted me, so why bother to do so? Big circle point. Sure enough, Oram waved his hands repeatedly and said, "Mr. Pandit, please don't be joking. We are all businessmen. We don't talk about politics." Then the conversation changed and he said, "Actually, I came here because I have a business." "Please, oh, what kind of business is it? Is it cooling oil or Vergang?" Shakru asked with a smile. "Anything is fine, as long as it is your product. We will accept it, and we will buy it at 5 times the market price." Oram said cheerfully. As the saying goes, anything abnormal must be a monster. Shakru was not moved by the 5 times the market price. Instead, he chuckled and asked, "Haha, 5 times the market price. I wonder if the market price I ordered before was too low. Or Mr. Oram, you don't really care about the wine, and you have other additional requirements." Oram praised. "It's still pleasant to deal with smart people like Mr. Pandit." "Yes, I do have one more thing that I need your help with," Shakru replied calmly. "Then let's get down to business. I'll see if I can help. If I can, I will ask for the reward directly. There is no need to go through such a big circle." Oram pondered for a moment, and then said, "I have a few friends who want to join your factory, and then I have to trouble you to put them into the transaction team with Chinese pharmaceutical companies. You don't have to worry about them when they arrive in China. Of course, you can set them up as temporary employees so that whatever happens in the future is none of your business." "Oh, I understand. In fact, you just want to send a few people to China through me, right? But why do you bother so much? If I remember correctly, it seems that Manipur is only a few hundred kilometers away from China, right?" Shakru asked very puzzledly. "Well, it's not difficult to sneak into China. The difficulty is that without a suitable identity, we have no way to contact the people we want to contact, even if the identity is temporary. Aurum explained. Shakru smiled bitterly and said, Mr. Aurum, do you still have the nerve to tell me that you are just a businessman who does not talk about politics? Aurum replied with some embarrassment, well, actually, this is a business for you and me. It is other people who want to make this matter political, and it has nothing to do with you or me. I don't know, Mr. Pandit, are you interested in this business? Shakru waved his hand and said, put it aside, whether you are interested or not. What I'm more curious about is why did you come to me? Mr. Aurum, do you think I'm not an Indian? Are you afraid that I will leak this matter and then arrest you all? Although I have never met Mr. Pandit, I can get a general understanding of you through the films you have made. Your first film, The Bandit Queen, complained about the caste system. Your second film, The Last Princess, is a mockery of the decadent and stubborn aristocracy. I firmly believe that the people who can produce these two movies will never be loyal supporters of the Indian government. Maybe if it weren't for the fact that your Brahmin status allows you to enjoy privileges, you might also will join us. And even if you do expose us, the loss to us will not be big. At most, a few operatives were arrested. As for us Manipurites wanting independence, is this news still news in India? Then he changed the subject and said, on the contrary, Mr. Pandit, if you really do this, you will lose more than you gain. I know you have several very skilled bodyguards around you, but there is no such thing as a 1000-day guard against thieves in this world. The truth is, don't you think so? Although Shakru dislikes Aurum's confident smile, he has to admit that what he said makes sense. Manipa's desire for independence is almost universally known in India, otherwise it would not have become an AFSP controlled area, so exposing this matter has no practical significance. On the contrary, he will be vulnerable to retaliation. After repeated consideration, Shakru finally decided, I'm sorry, Mr. Aurum, although I'm very dissatisfied with many things and traditions of the Indian government and Indian society, but this does not mean that I want to oppose this government and this tradition. So it's a pity that I can't help you with this, but don't worry, I will pretend that I don't know about this matter, and I will pretend that I have never met you today. The reason why Shakru made such a decision was that he didn't want to get involved in such sensitive events. In fact, it was not just this kind of thing. He didn't want to touch all political things. Although he had the golden finger of past life memory, it didn't mean that he could play politics, so it was better to stay away from it. Moreover, if this matter had some possibility, it would not be impossible for him to help, but this matter was not reliable at all, so it was better not to get involved. Mr. Pandit, don't rush to refuse, you haven't heard the reward for this matter yet. Aurum continued to persuade. I really find it hard to believe that you can offer a price that I can't resist. If you know my income, well, I know that Mr. Pandit's pharmaceutical business is very hot, but it's not a small amount to earn $200,000 for just a little effort. Chapter 155 New copy. After several attempts, Aurum failed to convince Shakru and finally left sadly. After he left, Shakru told Moody to strictly control all personnel who may have contact with China recently and inspection. No strangers were allowed to sneak in. Since Shakru did not explain the reason to him in detail, Moody did not understand what Shakru meant, but he still resolutely carried out the order for the sake of caution. Shakru also sent a fax to Harbin Pharmaceutical General Factory and Liu Zion to alert them to the possibility of someone pretending to be an employee of Gang Pharmaceutical in the near future. Harbin Pharmaceutical's reply was very satisfactory, but Liu Zion he was not so honest and just received a long distance call. Leo Sha, who have you offended recently? Why did you come all the way to China to pretend to be your employee? 4. Liu Zion. Shakru had no need to keep such things a secret, so he explained the ins and outs of the matter in detail. Unexpectedly, Liu Zion laughed and said, Leo Sha, I have to praise you. In a word, you are really doing the right thing in this matter, and you really can't pay attention to this gang of Manipur Liberation Army. Why do you think you know so much about them? Shakru asked curiously. I heard my father talk about this matter the year before last. They had long wanted to ask for help from China to help them become independent. At that time, they turned to the Yunnan military region. However, it is said that after reporting the report, the central government called it back and gave strict orders to the Yunnan military region. Don't get involved in this matter. In fact, this matter is quite understandable. So what's the use of an enclave that is not connected to the country? This is not Alaska in the United States. Moreover, in the current international situation, the United States is eager for China to make a stupid move. If it really intervenes in this matter, it is very likely that not only the benefits will be lost in the end. On the contrary, he might be sanctioned for this matter. It's really ridiculous. It's hard to say World War III. Anyway, it will definitely be bigger than the Gulf War. Liu Zhan explained slowly. Although Liu Zhan's words became more and more nonsense, Shakru agreed with his analysis of the central government's attitude. However, it was not convenient for him to continue discussing this with Liu Zhan, so he changed the subject and asked, "Hey, that's weird. Since we already hit a war the year before last, why do we want to come to you again this year?" Liu Zhan pondered for a moment, and then said, "It should be that a group of people has changed. I heard that the Manipur Liberation Army that was flying the 6-star red flag was dispersed not long after they withstood it. It may be that this group of people has emerged now. Do the Bo people want to try again?" "That's right. Why are they focusing on China?" Shakru smiled and replied, "In the whole of Asia, who else can suppress India except China? Are you counting on Myanmar?" "Ah. Ha. Laosha, do you also know about their relationship with Myanmar?" Liu Zhan asked in surprise. "Manipur is also our Indian territory after all. How can I know less about my own country than you, an outsider?" Shakru replied, pretending to be dissatisfied. Liu Zhan laughed and said, "Then this is interesting. They know you are Indian, but they dare to tell you such a thing. I really don't know what they think. Besides, Laosha, say to be honest, sometimes I really feel like you don't look like an Indian." Regarding Liu Zhan's last question, Shakru really couldn't answer, so he had to continue to pretend to be dissatisfied and said, "Old Liu, your words are becoming more and more unreliable. Forget it, let's not talk about it. I have time. I'll go to Changshan to find you, and we'll talk then." Look at you, you can't help but laugh at all. "Oh, by the way, didn't you promise me that you would cooperate with Changshan on a new project in half a year? It's already the new year, why is there no news at all? What do you want me to do?" Tell Xiaoqing, hey, you really died." After hanging up the phone from Liu Zhan, Shakru thought about it carefully and felt that to be on the safe side, it would be better to go find Ibrahim, lest he would really be resented by these guys and get shot again. Unexpectedly, Ibrahim listened to what he had to say. He laughed loudly and said, "Brother Shakru, don't worry about this. They Manipurites don't have the courage." Liu Zhan, knew something about Manipur and Shakru could accept it, but how could Ibrahim, the underworld leader, also act like he knew Manipur very well? So Shakru asked, "Brother David, how come you know so much about the people of Manipur?" "Brother, you should know that I have a business that specializes in cooking white noodles from the Golden Triangle, right? In fact, Manipur is much closer to the Golden Triangle than us, and they also grow this stuff there themselves, but they are too timid to leave it in such a big size. You don't dare to go out and do anything, even if you have a lot of money. Tell me, you even dare to rebel, but you don't dare to do anything about Baymayan. What kind of person are you?" Ibrahim explained with contempt. "No, Manipur still grows this kind of thing. I remember they don't mainly grow rice." Shakru asked very strangely. Ibrahim nodded and said, "Of course they grow it, but they don't grow much. They are all for daily use. The young people there basically eat this stuff, but the dosage is not large, so they are addicted. There aren't many, at least when I went there a few years ago I didn't see any addiction." "Brother David, have you ever been to Manipur? Isn't it said that the blockade there is very strict and no one can enter without a special pass?" Shakru asked. "Don't listen to those rumors. Manipur is a major transportation route to Myanmar. How could it be blocked? Not to mention us Indians, even foreigners can travel freely there. By the way, I'll take you there when I have time. The local customs, food, and architecture there are different from other places. It's quite interesting. Ibrahim said enthusiastically. Shakru thought, that's because you haven't been to China, so you think it's fresh, but you really should find a chance to see it. Unfortunately, in the following period, although Shakru went on a long journey, he didn't go to Manipur, but to the neighboring country Nepal. PS. According to the subscription situation in the past few days, it seems that everyone doesn't like the plot of Manipur very much, so just end it early and enter the new copy I have planned to write for a long time, Nepal. As for why I want to write here, I will explain it in detail in the next chapter, but please rest assured that I will never go off topic. Nepal and India have a very deep connection. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 156, Open Air Bathing. Although more than 80% of Indians believe in Hinduism, which can be regarded as the base camp of Hinduism, in fact, India is not the only country that believes in Hinduism, otherwise there would be no World Hindu Conference. Nepal, India's neighboring country, is also a major Hindu country. Although Nepal can also be called the birthplace of Buddhism, their national religion is Hinduism, which is written in the constitution of their country. Of course, in addition to Hinduism, there are also Tibetan Buddhism, Christianity, and but the status of Hinduism is unshakable. The caste system and many customs here are highly consistent with those in India, and even better, as mentioned earlier, Hinduism is divided into many factions, and Nepal is the base camp of the Shaktism. Therefore, Shakru was invited by Alec to exercise the rights of the outer elders, and come to Nepal for exchanges, which is actually tourism. Due to Shakru's accurate prediction during the last Diwali, the reputation of the Shaktism has soared. Therefore, the Great Master intends to fulfill his previous promise and send Shakru to the United States to enjoy himself, but there was a problem there, so the itinerary was changed to a trip to Nepal. It happened that Shakru had nothing important to do during this period. The movie was being prepared, the saint assigned to him was being trained, and the company was on track. It was a good opportunity to go out and have fun. In addition, he was curious about Nepal, so Shakru took Kabiva, Mustafina and Alec to Nepal. Just after walking out of the airport in Kathmandu, the capital of Nepal, and before arriving at the hotel where he was staying, Shakru was stunned by a scene on the street. He saw a dozen women of all ages, tall and short, fat and thin, black and white, taking a bath in the street. Yes, although they were wrapped in a towel-sized cloth or clothes, they were indeed taking a bath, and even Shakru could see the soap foam on their bodies clearly. Not only was Shakru stunned with astonishment, Kabiva and Mustafina also shouted in surprise. Alec followed their line of sight and looked over. Then he chuckled and explained, haha, it's quite surprising to see this kind of thing for the first time, but this happens all the time in Nepal, and you get used to it after a long time, although, Alec explained. But Shakru still found it difficult to understand. Why don't they take a bath at home, or in a bathhouse? Why do they start to wash in the open air on the street? It doesn't look good. Alec continued to explain. The reason for not going to the bathhouse is very simple, because there is no bathhouse in the whole of Kathmandu, but there are some high-end hotels. However, the charges are too expensive, and ordinary people can't afford it, so most of them wash clothes and take a bath in the pools or fountains on the street. Nepal is one of the poorest countries in the world, announced by the United Nations. If a toilet in India is a symbol of wealth, then the bathroom in Nepal has the same status. In fact, it is not only women who bathe in the open air, but men do the same. However, men and women use different faucets and keep a certain distance from each other. And if you observe carefully, you will find that this kind of bathing is not completely naked. Men usually wear shorts, upper body and legs. Women have their hair tied up high, wrap a piece of cloth around their lower body, and wear slippers. Men bring toiletries to the pool, put soap on their heads and bodies, and put their heads under the faucet for a while. The battle is usually over in more than 10 minutes. Women, on the other hand, appear to be very cautious. They wash every part of their body in public without exposing themselves. It is an easy thing. They often go in groups of 3 or 5, helping each other, taking care of themselves carefully and hard. The whole process is completed under the cover of the cloth, which takes about an hour. Although it is not as comfortable as in the bath, but it can achieve the same effect. There are natural reasons why Nepalese can bathe in the open air all year round. The Kathmandu Valley area has a temperate climate, which is not cold in winter and not hot in summer. The temperature remains at 22 degrees Celsius all year round. Therefore, even in winter, as long as there is enough sunshine, the daytime temperature can reach more than 10 degrees Celsius above zero, and the locals can still bathe in the open air without feeling cold. It is reported that, because the water in the pool comes from underground, it is not affected by the ground temperature. The temperature is affected, so it feels cool in summer and warm in winter. In addition, there are many underground waters that are hot spring waters containing sulfur, and bathing with them is very good for the body. In fact, Nepalese people bathe in open air pools for religious reasons. They believe that the pools and fountains in the Kathmandu Valley area are connected to the holy lake Gosane Kant Lake in their minds, where Lord Shiva, one of the main gods of Hinduism, lives. Bathing in these pools is equivalent to bathing and worshipping in the holy lake, which can eliminate disasters and sins. At this time, Kabiva suddenly pointed to a faucet and said, "Boss, look, that faucet is so beautiful." Alec nodded and said, "Yes, these faucets can almost be called works of art." In fact, in the Kathmandu Valley area, there are hundreds of large and small pools, most of which are made of red bricks. They are usually located in temples or streets. There are natural water sources nearby, 35 meters below the ground, surrounded by half-meter high walls. Some are decorated with stone animals such as lions and snakes. If you go down the red brick steps, you can see the pool paved with granite below. Bottom, drainage is built at the base of the 4 walls. There are several beautifully carved faucets arranged on the walls of the channel and the pool. Due to the low terrain of the pool, the spring water from the high place spurts out from the faucet, and the water splashes. This ancient faucet cannot be closed, and the water flows into the pool all year round. Then it is quickly discharged from the sewer. Therefore, the water in the pool is always clean. However, it is not so good in the countryside. People there usually take a bath in the river, and occasionally you can see them holding one water pipe for showering. During the next journey, as Alex said, you can almost see men and women taking a bath in the street at pools and fountains. After seeing it more often, you won't find it strange. Moreover, they wash so naturally without any trace of traces. If you think too much about the evil spirit, it will be your own problem. But for men, this is really a pleasure. The only regret is that there are fewer beauties. To be continued. Chapter 157, Burning Corpse Temple. Papatinath, located east of Kathmandu, stands on the banks of the sacred Bagmati River. This is one of the most important Shiva temples in South Asia, so it attracts many Asian Hindu believers to make pilgrimages. Believers from neighboring India also come here to worship. But don't think that any Hindu believer can enter this holy temple for pilgrimage. Before 2001, untouchables were not allowed to enter, and it was only after 2001 that it was allowed to open. The King of Nepal also comes here to pray before every trip point. Since the Pasupati temple is not allowed to non-Hindus, tourists can only stand on the hillside on the other side of the Bagmati River and pay attention to the temple. The entrance fee is 250 rupees. Believers are also not allowed to enter the temple. Of course, Shakru is not within the limit. The Bagmati River is a sacred river, as important as the Ganges in India, and is a very popular cremation site. There is a footbridge over the Bagmati River, connecting the 2 banks, and dividing the crematorium into 2 sides. The crematorium on the north side of the river is for civilians, while the south side of the river, where there is an orange flower stand, is for the royal family, nobles, etc. use. The king, queen and other royal members of the Nepalese royal family tragedy were cremated here, but that was in 2001. Perhaps it was because Shaklu and the others arrived relatively early. There was only one burning platform on the north side of the river, and a corpse burning platform on the south side of the river had already been arranged. It was covered with yellow flowers. Marigolds have a nice name. In fact, even the yellow chrysanthemums we often see in flower beds are also called smelly hibiscus. Even though he has been in India for several years, Shakru still disagrees with this way of handling corpses, and even hates it, so he has no intention of watching the cremation, so he followed his suggestion. The group of people came to the opposite bank of the temple, where there are rows of linga caves. In the center of the cave are placed the symbols of Shiva, Linga and Yoni. When visiting the temple of Lord Shiva, you will often see a black built stone pillar about half a meter long standing in the center of the temple. One after another, Indian pilgrims paid homage to it. Among the Hindu gods, Shiva is the god of fertility. He has a huge penis all over his body. The most common pillar-shaped object in Hindu temples actually represents men. Hindu believers call it linga. Why do people cut out of their male genitals in big temples? It turns out that since ancient times, Hindus have worshipped fertility and paid attention to the signs of genitals. Linga worship originated from the ancient Indus Valley civilization period. There is also a type of small terracotta sculpture corresponding to the linga, called yoni. The yoni is shaped like a millstone with a hole in the middle. It is sometimes represented by a statue of a woman with a big belly, symbolizing human reproduction. Yoni statues come in many shapes and sizes, each different, but they all represent goddess Parvati, the wife of Lord Shiva. But in fact, linga in Hinduism not only simply represents reproductive ability, but also has a deeper level of creativity. Climbing up the steps next to the linga cave, Shakru found many neatly arranged small houses. After asking, he found out that these small houses were all hermit caves. The so-called hermit cave is actually a training place for some hermits or ascetics. The area is not large, about 1 to 2 square meters. There are windows on all sides to peek inside. It was found that there were pictures of Lord Shiva and other gods, as well as marigolds for worship. Hey, why are there no hermits practicing in these hermit caves? Shakru asked curiously. Alec replied with some embarrassment. Well, now there are almost no hermits or ascetics who stay in the cave to practice seriously, because Pasupati is a place that every tourist in Nepal must visit, so they all can no longer meditate and practice. They all went to the tourist viewing platform on the other side of the river to solicit guests to take photos with them and ask for money. Usually they would ask tourists for 100 to 200 rupees, but in fact they only wanted to give them 10 to 20 rupees. Shakru was a little speechless about this. In this case, are these guys hermits, another form of street performers, or simply beggars? Out of curiosity, Shakru ran to take a special look at these so-called hermits, and found that they were dressed in different costumes. Some were naked with only a piece of rag wrapped around their vital parts, and some were fully clothed and wearing various accessories. The same thing was that they all kept their hair and beards extremely long, and they also maintained all kinds of strange behaviors. This posture reminded Shakru of a report in his previous life, which said that an ascetic monk insisted on raising his right hand for more than 30 years. In the end, he couldn't put it down, even if he wanted to put it down. After resting at the top of the mountain, go down the stairs, and you will arrive at a side door outside Pasupati. Next to this side door, there is a small temple. The name of this temple is Guhyaswade. The temple is dedicated to Kali, the terrifying incarnation of the goddess Parvati, Shiva's consort. Non-Hindus are also not allowed to enter. The name of this temple is a combination of the Sanskrit words and goddess. Because there is such a story, legend has it, that one day Lord Shiva was insulted by his father-in-law, and his wife threw herself into the fire in anger. When Shiva learned about it, he was extremely sad, and left with his wife's body in his arms. Along the way, her body slowly scattered, and hers fell here, so the name of this temple is the Temple of the Goddess. This temple is weird enough, right? Due to this legend, Hindu women have been treated cruelly in history. There was an unwritten custom in the history of Hinduism that, if a husband died, his wife would jump into the fire during the cremation of her husband, to show her loyalty to him, and burn to death with her husband. This cruel practice of burial was finally banned about 100 years ago, but in some remote areas of India and Nepal, this barbaric ritual is still carried out from time to time. Another point that impressed Shakru was that the entire Pasupati was more like a monkey paradise than a temple. Whether it was the main temple of Pasupati or the viewing platform on the opposite bank, on the bridge, by the river, on the top of the mountain, as long as you could see, monkeys were everywhere. because of the influence of the Nepalese belief that all things of life and monkeys are sacred animals. These monkeys have become bold and reckless, and incidents of stealing, robbing, and smashing have occurred from time to time. The arrogance is comparable to that of the monkeys in Mount Emery. To be continued. Chapter 158. My husband is a fruit. After all, there are only a few people in this world who are willing to die for love, and being forced to die is an even greater tragedy. As mentioned in the previous article, many Hindu women were forced to die for love, so in order to resist this tragic fate, they invented a way to survive outside the world. A custom that seems extremely absurd to humans. Apex novel. On the morning after visiting Pasupati, when Shakru was having breakfast, Alex suddenly walked in and said to Shakru, "Elder Pandit, Master Platon wants to invite you to attend. There is a wedding today. Go and bless them." "I don't know if you mean to go or not. It's a happy event to attend a wedding. I can also be a little happy," Shakru said while eating, "but this wedding is a bit special." Alex said hesitantly, "Oh, what's so special about it?" Shakru asked curiously. Alec hesitated for a moment, and then said, "Because today's groom is a fruit." "What fruit does this mean?" Shakru asked in confusion. "Well, this is a custom and tradition of the Nuari people. When the girls here are 5 to 8 years old, they hold a special wedding. It is also the first wedding in their lives, and in this wedding their groom is a kind of fruit called bell. This kind of fruit is not found in other countries. Even in Nepal, the yield is very low. It has a hard appearance and is produced in midsummer. The locals squeeze the juice of this fruit and drink it. It is said that it is very popular. It has the medicinal effect of producing fluid and relieving cough." Alec explained. Before Shakru could speak, Kabiva exclaimed, "Oh my god, what do these parents think? Why would they marry their daughters to a fruit? Are they crazy?" At this time, Shakru suddenly thought that in his previous life, Aishwarya had married a banana tree just to change Kev's fate. This was true, so he guessed, is it true that marrying this bell fruit can change the situation? What kind of fate? Well, Elder Pandit, your guess is pretty much the same. They married the bell fruit to change their fate, but it was not for the sake of killing their husbands, but to avoid the fate of being buried. Because there has always been an unwritten custom here, that is, if the husband dies, his wife cannot remarry to show her loyalty to her husband, so there will be many tragedies of young widows. In order to get rid of this tragic fate, some women came up with a solution, that is, to marry Belle, and Belle will be their husband from then on. In this way, as long as the dried husk of Belle is preserved, it is equivalent to having a husband who will never die. If they marry other men in the future, they will not be the maternal wives of these women, and they will no longer have to die for them. Alex sighed and then explained. After listening to Alex's explanation, Shakru's mood was also a little heavy. Sure enough, there was a last resort behind every seemingly absurd phenomenon. These women had worked hard to get rid of the fate of being buried. So he nodded and said, "In that case, then I'd better go to the wedding. As long as I can make some efforts for these poor children, it's good. But how should I bless them?" "Actually, it's quite simple. You use the Cheyenne Wubayolan to tell them divination. Then tell these girls that they will be happy in the future. I know this is a bit difficult for you, but just like what you just said, these children they are all quite pitiful, so just take pity on them." Shakru had no intention of refusing this request. First, as he said just now, he wanted to do something for these poor girls. Second, it was the first time that Master Platon asked him for help, and he was too embarrassed to refuse. After all, he would inevitably have to trouble others during his time in Nepal, and he did not value the sacredness of this so-called ritual divination as much as others imagined. So Shakru pretended to hesitate for a moment, then nodded and said, "Okay, I will make an exception for the sake of these poor children." Seeing that Shakru agreed, Alec was relieved. So after eating breakfast, Shakru and his party came to the wedding scene. This kind of special wedding is held in front of the temple of goddess Kumari because they all worship chastity. Before the wedding begins, in addition to dressing their daughter in a beautiful wedding dress, parents must also prepare a plate of flowers, a basin, bright red tikka powder, and of course, her other half bell fruit. At the wedding, the priest will pray with fruit bell for each girl, sprinkle flowers on their heads, and put bright red tikas on their foreheads. After doing this, it is Shakru's turn. A Hindu elder who came all the way from New Delhi, India, came to bless the girl. The so-called blessing was actually Shakru using the heavenly dancer to perform divination, and then said that the girl would be happy in the future. After that, the mother will put her daughter's feet on the basin and wash her daughter's feet with holy water mixed with cow urine. Then, the mother will drink the water of her daughter's feet, because they believe that these are the symbols of chastity. Women's foot washing water can cure diseases. When he saw this scene, Shakru almost vomited. Although he knew that cattle are sacred cows in Nepal and are said to be the mounts of Shiva, and knew that Nepalese people valued chastity, he still couldn't accept this kind of behavior. How to drink foot washing water. Alok, who was standing by, saw Shakru's expression and whispered, "Pandit elder, hold on. This is a custom in this place. Anyway, we are not asked to drink it." After the wedding ceremony, the girls will take their respective husbands' bell home and keep them. This fruit will slowly turn into a dried fruit and accompany her throughout her life. Originally, Shakru thought that this fruit wedding was already weird enough, but he didn't expect that the following Darshan festival would make him truly see what blood, cruelty, and massacre were. PS. Recently, the China literature group, where Gideon is located, has taken the lead in suing Baidu and cracking down on piracy. As a writer, we naturally support this. Now that pirated online music and pirated movies have been cracked down, it is finally the turn of online novels. Although there is only no piracy with UC now, it is a good start after all. I believe that if there is really no piracy, with the increase in writers' income, the phenomenon of water writing will become less and less, and there will be more and more good books. To be continued. Chapter 159, A River of Blood. Darshan, also known as the Durga festival, is the most grand festival in Nepal every year. There are grand, sacrificial and joyful temple fairs to celebrate the fertility of the land and the victory of good people over evil people. The symbolic representative is the goddess Tuxi, who defeated the devil, Bhavani. Every house became a temple to house the goddess, and everyone looked forward to taking a holy bath at dawn in a special sacred river. Before the festival, every Nepalese household cleans their houses with clean water. The festival lasts for 7 days in total. However, the most impressive thing about this festival is not these common sacrificial activities, but the bloody sacrifice that begins on the 8th day. Because this festival celebrates the victory of goddess Durga over Mahisasura, the buffalo demon incarnation of evil. Since Durga, also known as Gadhima in another translation, loves blood, this festival will also have a large-scale bloodletting ceremony, which has become Nepal's the largest animal sacrifice of the year. Therefore, on this day, it is most appropriate to describe it as a river of blood, because no matter where you go on this day, you will see people on the street dealing with killing scenes. It is said that during the Darshan festival in 2009, more than 250,000 buffaloes, goats and chickens were slaughtered. Many buffaloes were even imported from neighboring countries, because there were not enough local ones in Nepal. Fortunately, this kind of slaughter is only held every 5 years. In Hindu teachings, only cattle are sacred, and buffaloes are not within the scope of protection, so all buffaloes are slaughtered. Although Shakru did not catch up with the Darshan festival, he did catch up with the Taliju temple's own festival. This kind of festival is held once every quarter. As distinguished guests from afar, Shakru and Alec naturally they were invited. Kabiva and Mustafina were not eligible to attend the celebration, because they were women. However, they can watch from outside. There are especially many people coming to watch this celebration. There were several circles inside and outside, and some people even climbed up the nearby trees to watch. In the first half of the ceremony, Shakru almost fell asleep because he couldn't stand the trivial rituals, but he became more energetic when it came to the final part of offering sacrifices. I saw 8 buffaloes and 18 goats arranged in 2 rows respectively. 6 big and round butchers were holding brand new Gurkha scimitars, also known as the famous Nepali swordsman. These poor buffaloes, it was as if he knew he was about to face death. They were already shedding tears. Shakru could not help but sigh in a low voice. These cattle and sheep look so pitiful. Some foreign animal protection organizations have come to intervene, saying that this behavior violates animal protection laws. However, local officials said that this ritual has been passed down from ancient times and is a connection between Nepalese believers and their beliefs. Therefore, we cannot hurt their feelings and prohibit this practice. Originally, our Indian government also announced a ban on exporting buffalo and goats to Nepal during the Dashan festival, but many people still sell them secretly for high prices. This ritual is expected to continue forever. While the two were talking, the great master had finished his prayer. The butcher slashed his knife, raised the knife and dropped it, causing the buffalo to fall to the ground. Blood flowed out along the knife edge. This butcher's knife skills are so good. Alec nodded and said, of course, ordinary butchers are not qualified to participate in such an occasion. All butchers who come are very skilled and experienced. Because this kind of slaughter requires that the sacrifice must be finished with one knife. If the second knife is used, the blood will not be pure and Goddess Durga will be unhappy. Shakru felt very speechless about this. He didn't think that Goddess Durga would be happy by doing this. I have never heard of any positive god who likes blood all over the floor, and it will be very troublesome to clean up later. In fact, the progress of the cleanup far exceeded Shakru's imagination. As soon as the sacrifice ended, a large number of people came up to collect blood in various containers, and then a scene that stunned Shakru happened. These people actually spread all the collected blood on the wheels of cars, motorcycles and even tractors. So Shakru asked, what's going on? Why do they spray blood on their wheels? This is because the locals believe that spreading the blood of the sacrifices on the wheels can ensure safe driving and a smooth journey. Therefore, many car owners will wait for the end of the ceremony to collect blood, and the sacrificial master is very concerned about this. They will not interfere in this situation. It is said that even the Royal Nepal Airlines will prepare a goat for each plane as a sacrifice. Alec explained calmly. Shakru muttered in a low voice, that's right, they will definitely not stop them, and someone will help them clean the ground. Then he pointed to a group of people happily surrounding the corpses of cattle and sheep and asked, then what are they doing? Of course the meat is divided. Meat is not allowed in the temple, so the meat is distributed to the believers who come to watch. For these poor believers, every festival is a rare good day for them to improve their food. Usually they will treat the meat with spices, and then wait until the evening to celebrate with a big piece of meat and a big bowl of wine. Alec continued to explain, I just said, why are there so many people watching? It turns out it's because we can share the meat for free. Shakru complained in his heart. At night, there will be parades and masked dancers dancing on the streets. Monks will dress up in costumes, pretending to be various gods and demons, knocking on doors from house to house. You only need to give them some money, and they will dance and chant in front of your house. Nepalese people also believe that this will drive away the demons in the house and keep safe. Shakru's original intention was to play in Nepal for a few more days, but an incident that happened suddenly made him return to India, and he started another industry from then on. P.S. Feeling that everyone seems to be uninterested in Nepal, the second gathering place of Hinduism, I will not write about Nepal from the next chapter. And let the protagonist return to India and continue his wonderful life in India. PS2. I wrote this chapter in an internet cafe. Can you guess what the environment was like when I was writing? A buddy on the left is playing LOL, and the one on the right is watching a beautiful girl live broadcast. Well, I also glanced at it from time to time. It was really domineering. In this case, the quality must be a little worse. Please forgive me. Chapter 160 New Business. The cause of this incident came from a phone call from old Patala. Little Shakru, I heard that you went to Nepal to travel. Well, we are here for religious and cultural exchanges, not tourism. By the way, do you have anything to do with me? Shakru corrected him and asked, I can't come to you if nothing happens, but I do have something to ask you this time. Are you interested in taking over a hotel? Why did you suddenly think of asking me this question? I have never been in this business before. The only industries I have now are pharmaceutical companies and film companies, which have nothing to do with the hotel industry. Shakru asked very strangely. Old Patala sighed and said, I know your industry has nothing to do with the hotel industry, but I really can't find the right person, so I'm asking you this. Having known old Patala for so long. This was the first time Shakru saw him like this. Usually this old man looked very confident and calm, as if he could easily solve any problem he encountered. So he asked, "Grandpa Patala, has something happened to you?" "Actually, this is a hotel owned by one of my nephews. It's a pity that it can't be run anymore. But after all, it is our family's old business. It hurts my heart to see it fall into the hands of outsiders. That's why I'm asking you. After all, among the people around you, you are the only one with such financial resources." Old Patala explained nonchalantly. Shakru complained in his heart, "It hurts to fall into the hands of outsiders. Am I not an outsider? Old man, you really think of me as your grandson-in-law, but Amisa and I haven't confirmed our relationship yet." But to be honest, old Patala's proposal really impressed him. It seems that opening a hotel would be a good idea. This is not a whim of Shakru. It's because he has a good buddy in college who owns a hotel at home. He also interned in this hotel when he was a junior and senior in college, so he has some understanding of the hotel industry. The most obvious place, so he asked, "How big is this hotel, and how much does it cost?" A 6-story hotel next to Connaught Place. The entire building including the land is only $3 million. How cheap is it? No way, so cheap. Actually, it's no wonder that Shakru is so surprised, because it is the most important commercial street in New Delhi, the capital of India. It is famous for its noble and elegant shopping environment and rich products, so the land price here is not low. But now 3 million can buy even a strip hotel, which is definitely extremely cheap. But there is a small request. That is, all the money must be paid at once. If it is paid in installments, then there is no need to rush to sell it. Old Patala hesitated for a moment, and then explained. When old Patala explained this, Shakru understood that, although there are many rich people in New Delhi, there are not many people who can take out $3 million in cash at one time, because generally people who do business you won't keep too much cash in your hands, but you will want to make the funds flow. Only in this way can we expand production scale or investment channels and obtain more profits. It's probably because of this. Old Patala couldn't find a suitable person to take over, and finally found the prospective grandson-in-law in his heart. Shakru pretended to ponder for a long time, and then said, "Okay, Grandpa Patala, you take me to see this hotel first, and then we talk." "Okay." Old Patala nodded and replied, "Well, that's what it should be. There are millions of dollars in business. You can't make a conclusion without looking at it, because of this incident." Shakru temporarily suspended his trip to Nepal, returned to New Delhi, accompanied by old Patala's nephew. After visiting this hotel called Ganesa Hotel, Ganesa is Ganesha, the god of wealth in Hinduism, Shakru found that no wonder he couldn't open it. Although the hotel is famous, it's a hotel, but the facilities and decoration inside are really poor. It's not worth the good location. Anyway, Shakru himself would never live in such a place. However, I'm quite satisfied with this hotel, Shakru. At least the location and construction quality of the hotel are good. I believe that if it is renovated and some special projects are added, the performance should be improved. But satisfaction is satisfaction. On the surface, it cannot be exposed. Otherwise, how can the price be reduced? So what followed was a series of bargaining processes, and finally Shakru purchased the Ganesha Hotel for a one-time payment of $2.4 million. After buying the hotel, Shakru began to decorate and renovate it. According to his idea, he wanted to build the new hotel into a new concept hotel targeting foreign tourists and high-end Indian customers, but apparently Murthy found it for him. The decoration company did not understand his intention. The designer of the decoration company pointed to the sketch drawn by Shakru and asked, Mr. Pandit, what do you mean by the hot spring bath here?" "It means literally, I plan to build a hot spring on the first floor. It will require at least 10 hot spring pools. But the problem is that you don't have a hot spring here?" the designer asked, still puzzled. Shakru pretended to be mysterious and replied, "You don't have to worry about this. Just clear the space. The specific internal work will be designed by a dedicated person. In fact, what Shakru wants to build is an artificial hot spring, because he found that there seemed to be no hot springs in New Delhi. It seemed that everyone's understanding of hot springs was still at the level of natural hot springs. But in fact, the technology of artificial hot springs is now very mature, and the ingredients of artificial hot springs are even better than those of some natural hot springs. The effect is even better. Last time he enjoyed a wonderful artificial hot spring experience in Amsterdam. Therefore, this time Shakru planned to build an artificial hot spring in his hotel, so that it would be the only one in New Delhi. For this purpose, he specially talked with his collaborator in the Netherlands, the old Bergkamp of the Royal DSM Group. I contacted him and asked him to help me hire the artificial hot spring team that I stayed at the hotel last time. Although he didn't quite understand Shakru's intention, the designer still agreed obediently and then pointed to a place and asked, "Mr. Pandit, and here, do you want to build a performance hall?" Shakru nodded and replied, "Yes, it is a performance hall, and it also needs a stage with complete facilities, but this is a hotel. What's the purpose of building a stage?" the designer asked in confusion. Chapter 161 Dance Troupe. Shakru said with some dissatisfaction, "Why can't the hotel have a stage? Can't there be a performance hall? Let me tell you, not only should I have one here, but I also need to hold unique performances every night. This is what I have here." Features of the hotel. The designer was a little speechless by Shakru. Although he felt that the hotel's performance was purely a fool's errand, but since the big boss was willing to bother, then why did he care about it? However, if you don't understand something, you still need to ask. "Okay, I will build you a beautiful performance hall, but your request for these seats seems a bit strange." "Oh, that's so you can enjoy a foot massage while watching the show," Shakru explained casually. "Foot massage? What kind of massage is that? Is it massaging the soles of the feet?" the designer asked curiously. Shakru waved his hands impatiently and said, "You don't have to worry about this. You can try it after it is built. I believe that, as long as you try it once, you will definitely like this massage method." In 1993 and 2008, foot massage just developed all over the world, and the main contributor was Mr. Wuru Oshi, a Swiss priest, carried forward this traditional medicine that originated in China and has a history of 4,000 years. Although foot massage was not yet popular in India at this time, Shakru firmly believed that this unique massage therapy was good for people who often go barefoot. It must be a huge attraction for Indians. After sending away the designer, Shakru came to Ibrahim and asked him, "Brother David, can you contact Toktakhanov? I would like to ask him to help me hire another one. These Russian beauties don't need to be athletes this time, as long as they are beauties who can dance and can live in India for a long time. I can pay them a high salary." Ibrahim pointed at him and laughed loudly. "Little Shakru, it seems that you really like Russian women. It has only been a few days and you can't help it. Tell me, how many do you want this time?" Shakru thought about it for a moment and then said, "It must be at least 20 or 30. After hearing what Shakru said, Ibrahim, who was drinking, was almost frightened and spit out the red wine in his mouth and said in surprise, "Little Shakru, I know you are young and in good health now, but you can't do this. 20 or 30 women will not exhaust you to death." Shakru explained in a dumbfounded manner, "Brother David, you have misunderstood. I hired Russian beauties this time, not for my own enjoyment. I have just acquired a hotel recently and plan to hire a group of Russian beauties to dance in the hotel. Dancing in the performance hall attracts customers." "Oh, that's it. Then you didn't explain it clearly just now. You scared me." Ibrahim breathed a sigh of relief after hearing this, sat down again, and then asked, "But are you sure that we Indians will like it? Russian dance. Russian beauties generally have very hot figures, and their dance moves are bold and unrestrained. I believe that men will generally like them. Moreover, my hotel mainly caters to foreign tourists and domestic high-end customers, so there cannot be only Russian dance groups, but also there will be our Indian specialty dancers. I will also go to Thailand or Japan to hire dance troupes. In short, the forms will be very diverse. But don't we have already made contact with Toktakhanov here in Russia?" he explained slowly, while holding a glass of wine. Shakru is telling the truth on this point. After a while, he will really contact Thai and Japanese performance teams. After all, Thai boys and Japanese XX are very unique. Ibrahim nodded and said, well, that's true. One of Tok Takhanov's important jobs is to pimp, so he has many beauties under his command. I will contact him in the evening and ask him to do it as soon as possible. Send a group of beauties here. But Shakru, I'm really looking forward to your new hotel. When it opens, remember to call me. Needless to say, if I don't call anyone, I can't help but call you. Shakru flattered. After coming out of Ibrahim's place, Shakru was in a very good mood, but at this time he suddenly found that the expression of Bivapalava next to him was a little heavy, so he asked curiously, Bivapalava, what's wrong with you? You seem worried. Bivapalava hesitated for a long time, and then said, boss, I want to ask you something. If you six have any difficulties, just tell me directly. There is no need to ask for help or not. Shakru replied sincerely. This was also what he was thinking. Although we have only been together for more than a year, but these 6 beauties from the former Soviet Union, Yanzi, were both his bodyguards and bedmates, and they were loyal to him, so Shakru would not refuse their requests, as long as they were not too excessive. It's not that the 6 of us are in trouble. I just want to beg you for my classmates who were in Hanki College. Since the collapse of the Soviet Union, because the things we learned in school are basically useless in society, their lives have been difficult. The situation is so miserable that some have even been reduced to selling their bodies to make a living. I just heard you tell Mr. Ibrahim that you need a group of Russian beauty dance troops, so I want to fight for them. Don't worry, although we are not majoring in dance, we have the skills. So it's definitely not much worse than those dancers, Vibalova confided, lowering her head. Shakru did not pay attention to the main content of Vibalova's statement, but asked one point, do you still have contact with your former classmates? Pivaparova shook her head and said, there is no direct contact. This is what my cousin in Moscow told me. She used to go to the same school as me. Since I sent her money several times, she also helped several classmates, and that's how she got the news about them. Oh, then if your school recruits you again, will you go back? Shakru asked. Pivaparova answered with a firm look, the Soviet Union has already collapsed. How can someone recruit us? And even if there is, we will not go back, because only by your side can we live like human beings. After listening to Pivaparova's explanation, Shakru breathed a sigh of relief and said, that's good. How about this? You ask your cousin to start contacting your former classmates now, and I will give you 30 places, but I don't want them to dance with my thighs. P.S. Some readers said in the book review area that there are not enough beautiful bodyguards, and I will solve this problem soon. Chapter 162 Women 039 S writes, well, what do you plan to let them do? You won't let them accompany others to do that, will you? Pivaparova asked with a somewhat ugly face. I just love surfing the internet. Shakru laughed dumbly, patted Pivaparova casually, and said with a smile, what are you thinking about? How can I let your classmates do that kind of work of serving people? And it would be a waste of their skills. I asked you to find them to do security. Think about it, such a big hotel will still be mainly used to receive high-end customers in the future. How can it work if the security force is poor? These classmates of yours are not only good in skills and strong in skills, but also loyal to me. And use a group of beautiful guards. It's better than those bearded men, isn't it? Knowing that her former classmates and sisters were able to apply what they learned, Pivaparova was very happy. However, when she thought about her misunderstanding of Shakru, she blushed and said, I'm sorry, boss, I misunderstood just now, but don't worry, you don't need them to serve others, then they will serve you. Before she finished speaking, Shakru laughed and said, I still like you to serve me. After that, he pressed Pivaparova under him. While Shaka was busy with the decoration design of the new hotel, Rajkumar came over and complained, boss, please take some time to care about our new movie. You, the big boss, have never shown up from the beginning of filming to the end. You have to take time to go to the premiere no matter what. 30 minutes of battle description omitted here, Shaka complained. You said I don't care. I wrote the script framework of this movie, and I also selected the 2 leading actors. If this is not called care, then what is care? And I'm busy these days. Don't worry, I will definitely be there at the premiere. By the way, remember to invite more relatives of Kajol to our premiere. Rakima nodded and said, don't worry about it. Isn't this the purpose of inviting Kajol in the first place? Of course, through this movie, I found that her acting skills are also very good. And we don't have to worry about this. Kajol is very satisfied with this movie, so she has taken the initiative to invite her parents and grandfather and uncle to attend the premiere. Sure enough, at the premiere, Kajol's grandfather Sashada Mukherjee, father Sumu Mukherjee, mother Tanuja Mukherjee, aunt Nuden, grandmother Shabona Samash and cousin Joy Mukherjee all came. This was also their first time to attend Kajol's movie premiere, but they were really shocked when the movie started because the beginning of the movie is a scene where Kajol dances to music, wrapped in a bath towel, after taking a bath. Although this detail reflects and explains that Kajol in the film is a modern girl who grew up in the UK and is very little bound by Indian traditional ideas, this is definitely a very bold attempt for Indian movies that strictly restrict kissing and nudity. Fortunately, the towel was wrapped tightly enough without any leaks. Otherwise, the audit would not have passed. Although there are no such exciting scenes in the following plot, the theme promoted in it still makes all the audience, especially the female audience, feel very fresh and bold. When she learned that she was going back to India and marrying a man she had never met, Kajol applied to her father for a month's trip to the European continent. When she applied, she mentioned only once, life, no more chances and other sentences many times. In fact, it still reflects the helplessness of being bound by tradition as an Indian woman. While traveling in Europe, she met Shah Rukh, which made Kajol's thoughts begin to change. She drank and got drunk, ran wild everywhere, and played around in the swimming pool. She just let go and did things she had never done before. It was a kind of inner liberation. Kajol was not a weak and submissive girl in her bones. After returning from Europe, her father's misunderstanding and insistence on returning to India pushed the contradiction between tradition and freedom. Let her cry. Her fate cannot be changed. She should learn how to accept it, and let her cry enough. The father's words reflect the irresistible nature of tradition. In fact, such families are not uncommon in India. In such typical Hindu families, the traditional father has absolute say in the family. The mother, as a typical female image, obeys her husband and tradition on the one hand, takes care of the family and children wholeheartedly, and on the other hand, she knows the sacrifices of women in marriage and family, but has no ability to change. Kajol's mother is actually a very important role in the movie. When she first persuaded Kajol, she said, when I was a child, my father told me that there is no difference between men and women, and we have equal rights. But when I grew up, I found that it was just a lie. I couldn't go to school because it was more important for my brother to go to school than for me. That was just my first sacrifice. Then, every step I took, whether as a daughter, as a sister, or as a wife, I had to sacrifice my own happiness, but that was in the past. When I held you in my hands for the first time, I swore that I would never let what I experienced happen to my daughter again. No matter as a daughter, as a sister, or as a wife, there should be no more mistakes in every step. Much sacrifice. Even if she is a girl, she can live according to her own wishes. She wants to live happily. But I was wrong. I even forgot that a woman has no right to swear such an oath. She was born to make sacrifices for men. For the sake of their women, men will not make sacrifices regardless of their ability. So I advise you to give up your own happiness. This passage itself is the entire interpretation of Indian women's life, sacrifice, dedication for men, and giving up their own happiness. It is also something that Indian women have regarded as tradition and even virtue for thousands of years. In an Indian culture, women have always existed as an accessory to men. Later, after seeing the relationship between Kajol and Shah Rukh, Kajol's mother made another move and persuaded her daughter to leave with Shah Rukh. I was wrong, Kajol. My daughter does not have to sacrifice her life. Happiness, she doesn't have to sacrifice her love. Shah Rukh, take my daughter away from here. I will take care of everything. It can be said that throughout the entire movie, the role of Kajol's mother has been driving the story forward. The mother's change is originally the change in her thoughts in the process of pursuing women's status from her era to her daughter's era. Although such a change is not smooth sailing, although such a change is full of entanglements, the same change occurred in Kajal, but it was not so much a change in her as a release. The release when I met Shahrukh while traveling in Europe was a release of inner freedom. Then she agreed to get married after returning to China, but when Shahrukh went to Punjab to find her, he asked Shahrukh to take her to elope. The release at this time was one step closer. It was not just the seeds of inner uneasiness, but the beginning of active pursuit of himself happiness. At the end of the movie, Kajal, still wearing a traditional Indian bridal dress, rushed to the train station with the support of her mother and sister, determined to go with Shahrukh. Her father grabbed her wrist tightly. She cried and begged her father almost desperately, "Let me go, Dad. Shahrukh is my life. I can't live without him. Let me go to me, Shahrukh." This confession has pushed all the emotions in her heart to the peak. For her own happiness, don't have an arranged marriage. Don't make sacrifices like your mother or more women. As a woman, you also have the right to pursue your own happiness, of course. As a movie, the ending is perfect and happy. Kajal's father figured it out and decided to fulfill his daughter's wish. So the moment his father let go, Kajal was stunned. And that moment was the victory for women's rights that Kajal and her mother fought for. Kajal ran towards the moving train and Shahrukh held out his hand to stop her. Everything is just like how they met. P.S. This chapter explains some of the connotative things of the movie, so the number of words may be a little more, but please rest assured that the next few hundred words are free of charge, and it is still the same as one chapter of 2000 words. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 163, Love Rival. In Shakru's memory, the movie Win the Heart immediately aroused widespread attention. As soon as it was released, the box office went straight to the first place that year, and it lasted for 15 years after its release, making it a record in the box office history of India. It's a miracle, but although the quality of Shakru's Win the Heart this time is almost exactly the same as the original film, and it also achieved very good box office, it brought some unexpected problems to Shakru. Backquote, for example, the newspaper in Shakru's hands publicly claimed that the film censorship department should ban the release of Win the Heart because such a film would destroy the traditional marriage system in India. It also called on all fathers to bang their daughters. Go see this movie. Shakru smiled bitterly and said to Rajkumar, "I really don't understand that such a love movie can actually cause such a big stir. It seems that Bandit Queen didn't do this at the beginning, right?" Rajkumar thought for a while and explained, "Boss, the story of Bandit Queen is far away from ordinary people's lives after all, and the story of Pirandevi has been widely circulated before the movie, so it is not accepted by everyone. So difficult. But Win the Heart is different. Marriage is for everyone and every family. It is something that everyone must experience and face, and the traditional system in our country is arranged marriage, so it is natural to have resistance to this kind of movie that promotes free love, especially those who are fathers and parents. If their daughters or granddaughters are, if it's like Kajal in the film review, then where is their authority?" But in my impression, many Bollywood movies are stories about rich girls marrying poor boys. Shakru asked, still puzzled, "But those were all ancient stories, and our Win the Heart is a modern film, and maybe we filmed it too realistically, so it is easy for people to feel immersed in it. Not just our target market, the young girls stepped in. Even their parents stepped in, and it became what it is now. Point. And if you don't know, it is said that a film company is planning to make a movie promoting arranged marriage in order to compete with Win the Heart, and it has already started preparing the script." Rakima said, very depressed. "What? No way." This news completely shocked Shakru. In his mind, as soon as Win the Heart was released, it received rave reviews and created a miracle in Indian movies. It seems that I have never heard of such twists and turns. In fact, it happened because Shakru made a small mistake. Historically, Win the Heart was released in 1995. India carried out economic reforms similar to China's reform and opening up in 1992. After 3 years of reforms, in addition to making great economic achievements, it also brought it is due to the opening of ideas and culture that more young people are beginning to pursue free love and Western lifestyles. Including film, music and other forms of foreign culture. When the Heart was filmed at the early stage of this reform trend, so it was easier for everyone to accept it. However, Shakru's version of When the Heart was screened in 1993. At this time, the economic reform had just started less than a year ago, and the effect had not yet been exerted. Naturally, it was impossible to trigger people's ideological and cultural openness. Therefore, it is natural to encounter resistance. I personally despise those entertainment articles that copy books, songs, and movies without taking into account the background of the times and the humanistic environment. A song, a movie, or a book can become popular because it has a certain historical background and humanities. Environmentally speaking, it's not realistic to say that a good movie will become popular whenever it is released. As the saying goes, good fortune never comes alone, and misfortune never comes alone. The things that made Shakru depressed didn't stop there. At this time, old Patala called little Shakru. You said it's not good for you to make some movies. Why do you have to make the kind of movies that encourage free love? Hearing these words, Shakru almost vomited blood. Grandpa Patala, why are you also opposing my film? Old Patala replied angrily, if I don't object, even your wife will be snatched away. To tell you the truth, now there is an Avorish in the United States who is chasing Amisa, and now he is chasing her. Coming to India, the day after tomorrow he will also come to Amisa's birthday party. You said, if Amisa had listened to me honestly, would this kind of thing have happened? But it doesn't mean that you are still filming this kind of film. Are you causing trouble for yourself? At first, Shakru wanted to argue with old Patala that he and Amisa were just good friends. However, after hearing that someone was chasing Amisa, even to India, he suddenly felt a little uncomfortable. In fact, he had long since determined in his heart that Amisa was the most suitable candidate for his future wife. But firstly, he was still playful, and secondly, I thought that I was not too old now, and Amisha was studying in the United States, and the two of them had been together less and more apart, so I never brought this matter to light. However, after learning about this matter, Shakru suddenly panicked and asked, Grandpa Patala, are you telling the truth? Are you kidding me, old Patala said anxiously, can I just joke with you about this kind of thing? But don't worry, I firmly disagree with this matter. Don't say that I have already recognized you as my grandson-in-law. Even without you, I will never agree to Amisa marrying a Dalit. You said the one pursuing Amisa is a Dalit? This answer shocked Shakru. What a joke. A Dalit boy dared to pursue a Brahmin girl. Is he crazy? No matter how you look at it, this is absolutely impossible. Humph. He is just a little Dalit who grew up in the United States. He has never been to India and doesn't know the depths of the world. His father went to the United States and made some money. But Navorish is Navorish, and inferior people are inferior people. He wants to marry my precious granddaughter, so he can only dream about it, said old Patara angrily. After hearing the explanation from old Patara, Shakru roughly understood what was going on. It should be that this young man grew up in the United States, so he was not very clear about the harsh caste system in India and the gap between high and low castes. In addition, he had a little bit of American romanticism and adventurous spirit. Actually, he was just foolish and bold, living on luck, so he pursued the beautiful and smart Amisa at all costs. However, his ending was almost foreseeable, and he would definitely die ugly. P.S. Book friends in the group said that the recent chapters did not reflect the feeling of superiority, which was a bit off topic. So please take a look at whether this plot I designed reflects the taste of superiority. Chapter 164, Waldang. Just when Shaklu was thinking wildly, old Patala added, by the way, Shaklu, Amisha will call you later to tell you about this matter. I just want to tell you in advance so that you can be mentally prepared. Don't say it was me, otherwise I won't be able to keep my beard. Okay, I'll hang up. Sure. Enough. It didn't take long for Amisa to come to him and talk about the matter. Brother Shakru, I'm telling you something, so don't be angry. Hearing this, Shakru's heart sank. What the hell? Don't let me get angry. Could it be that you really did something to feel sorry for me? No way. Amisa, you have always been an innocent little girl in my heart. Although I have been busy recently and haven't spent much time with you, you won't just find a young upstart. You don't know that I'm a time traveler. Following me is better than following him. Apart from spending a little money, there is really no problem in other aspects. Amisha naturally didn't know that Shakru was thinking about these messy things at this time, but from his face, she could also see that Shakru had misunderstood, so she quickly explained, Shakru brother, don't think too much, it's not a big deal. I met a classmate in school. He is also Indian. I grew up in the United States. I don't know why. He started pursuing me crazily before Christmas. I even told him that I had a boyfriend, but he just refused to believe it. He even followed me this time. I returned to India. I thought it would be my birthday in a few days, and then brother Shakru would come forward to make him give up. Hearing Amisa's explanation, Shakru breathed a sigh of relief and put his heart in his stomach. It turned out that things were different from what old Patala said. Amisa invited this young man to attend her birthday party. It was to show off that he was a real boyfriend, so that the guy would give up. It seems that Amisa's feelings for him haven't changed at all, but he will learn a lesson through this incident. He should stay with Amisa and watch her closely in the future, lest something really happens. That would be troublesome then, so he patted his chest and said, you just don't worry. I will definitely let him give up and never dare to harass you again. Then, he seemed to suddenly think of something and asked again, hey, Amisa, since this guy has been pestering you all this time, then why don't you tell Grandpa Patala? Amisha snorted, I won't tell Grandpa, he is just an old stubbornness. When he saw that Kayla's surname was Dalit, he was very rude to others, as if mentioning his name was for her own sake. It's the same insult. Although I don't like card, I don't like Grandpa's discriminatory attitude, so I won't tell Grandpa about it. Point by the way, brother Shakru, I think your new film Win the Heart is particularly beautiful. Love should be like this without any hindrance or restriction. As long as people love each other, they should stay together, and love should not be sacrificed. You should not sacrifice your own happiness for others. Amisa, you can understand me best. Although Shakru said this on the surface, he was complaining in his heart. Only people like you who have been living abroad can understand me. Now because of this movie, I have been the scolding was so bad that even your grandfather didn't understand me. Although Shakru was following Amisa's words, he didn't expect that Amisa would not appreciate it. He turned around and said a little unhappy, people can understand you, but you don't understand them. Shakru was a little confused by this easy to say sentence. Why don't I understand you? Then, tell me, how do you plan to make Card give up during the birthday party? Amisa asked without answering. I'll just say that I'm your boyfriend and ask him not to pester you again. Otherwise I won't be able to forgive him. He was halfway through his words. Shakru suddenly realized that it turned out that Amisa was blaming him for never formally expressing love to her. It may be because he has been a man for 2 generations and his mental age is a bit old, so this kind of love is normal. He couldn't say it all the time, but it seemed like he couldn't escape today, so he made a wall down move. Amisa was trapped under her arm, staring into Amisa's eyes until her face turned red. Then she spoke affectionately, my dear Amisa, please be my girlfriend. Okay, I can write internal stories, but I really can't write emotional dramas. So let's just make do with this. Although she heard the words she dreamed of, Amisa still held on and lowered her head and said, there is no sincerity at all. When you say such words, you should at least get a bouquet of flowers, right? Shakru thought to himself that he had not prepared anything in advance. Where do you want me to go? But fortunately, he is not a young brother who has no experience in relationships. He knows that at this time, he can use one force to reduce 10. Knowing how to fight violently, so he took a step forward, stretched out his slightly stronger arms to take Amisha into his arms, then lowered his head slightly and kissed her fiercely. It was obvious that Amisa did not expect Shakru to do this. After being suddenly attacked, she was at a loss for a moment. But when she felt the strong masculine smell on Shakru's body and their heartbeats, her whole body became weak and soft. In Shakru's arms, he unconsciously wrapped his hands around Shakru's neck and began to respond enthusiastically. Just when the two were kissing passionately, the phone on Shakru's desk rang at an inopportune time. Amisha, who was suddenly interrupted, seemed to have done something bad and was caught. She quickly broke free from Shakru's arms and said with a red face, "Brother Shakru, remember to come early to the birthday party the day after tomorrow." After that, she ran out in a hurry like a frightened little rabbit. The caller was Amisha's grandfather, old Patara. As soon as the phone was connected, he asked impatiently, "Little Shakru, what did Amisha tell you? What are you going to do about this?" Shakru said unhappily, "You think too much about this matter. In fact, Amisha doesn't like that kid at all. She hopes that I can appear as her boyfriend at her birthday party to make that kid give up. P.S. It's almost 200 chapters before the heroine has barely decided. I guess no one else dares to write like this except me." Chapter 165 Father and Son, Alliance Leader adds extra content. It was obvious that Shaklu's answer made old Patala breathe a sigh of relief. That's good. That's good. This girl is the same. Since he doesn't like that card, why didn't he tell me directly? Because she doesn't like your way of discriminating whenever you hear Dalit's surname. Shakru explained calmly. Old Patala snorted coldly and said, "Discrimination? Is this also called discrimination? Then he has really never seen how Dalits in China live. Okay, let's not talk about this and talk about business, Shakru. So how are you going to deal with this?" Although Shakru clearly knew what old Patala wanted to know, he still pretended to be confused and replied, "I don't have any plans. I just listen to Amisa. Then I will pretend to be her boyfriend and let that card. Isn't it okay to retreat when faced with difficulties?" Sure enough, this answer almost made old Patala angry to death. He said angrily, You asked me to tell you what you want. You missed such a good opportunity. Why are you pretending? Boyfriend, why don't you take the opportunity to declare your love and become her boyfriend? Hey, you're usually a smart young man. Why are you so stupid now? Shakru laughed and said, "Haha, do you think I'm such a stupid person? To tell you the truth, if it hadn't been for that phone call you just made, you might be able to hold your great-grandson in 10 months. Haha, that's good, that's good. Let me just say, there are so many women around you, how can you not even understand this?" Then he seemed to suddenly remember something and said coldly, "Hey, but I'm warning you, kid, before you two are officially married, you are not allowed to do anything deviant. Our Patala family is a big family. If there is any such thing as a marriage and a double happiness, we can't afford to lose that. People, don't worry. Amisa is such a lovely girl. How could I be willing to hurt her like this? Besides, with such a powerful grandpa like you here, I don't even have the guts." Shaklu assured her quickly. In fact, old Patala wasn't angry just now. She just said this to scare Shaklu and make a guarantee when she saw him. He borrowed the help of Piozar Donkey and said, "It's good if you know the importance. By the way, you have to behave well at the birthday party, and I will also help you arrange some helpers. Then I have to give this Dalit a headache for a long time. Let's check out the colors." Just as Shakru and old Patala were discussing how to deal with this Dalit boy Kada who came from afar, Kada himself suddenly became a little uneasy about his trip to India. In fact, long before he decided to come to India, his father, Leo Kada, once advised him earnestly, "Son, listen to dad, you don't want to go to India, and you don't want to go to this girl named Amisa either. Chase. Because no matter how hard you try, you are destined to fail." Little Card said unconvinced, "Why must I fail? I really love her. I would fly halfway around the world for her. I believe she will be moved by me." Old Card shook his head and said, "Maybe she will be moved by you, but her family will definitely not accept you." Why? I know that Amisa's family's conditions are good, but ours are not bad either. With a net worth of tens of millions, they are considered wealthy people in the United States. Little Card asked in confusion. Leo Kada sighed and explained, "Kid, you don't understand. Sometimes money can't solve everything. At least in the eyes of Amisa's family, our family is not worthy of others. Don't forget, Our last name is Card, but my surname is Patala. Little Card was very confused when he heard this. What does this have to do with your last name? Have you forgotten the caste system I once told you? Leokada asked without answering. Little Card sneered and said, oh, what did I think it was? It turns out to be the same thing again. Dad, I'm not telling you. What age is it now? How can anyone follow that old and scumbag thing? It's a system, and I've seen Indian law, and the caste system was abolished as early as 1947. Old Card snorted and said, law? If the law is really that useful, why would you, and I still, have to smuggle to the United States? Isn't it good for me to start a business at home? Who is willing to leave home and go so far away? Place. Well, I remember you told Uncle Joe and the others. It's because the market in India is too small and there are too few development opportunities, so you came to the United States to work hard. Little Card replied with some uncertainty, but before he could finish speaking, Leokada interrupted him and shouted, do you believe this? These are all lies. Do you want me to tell them that I was a Dalit when I was in India? An untouchable, a pariah who can only do the meanest job, eat the most unpalatable food, and can beat me up at will, no matter where he goes. How can I tell people this? Although Old Card was extremely excited, Little Card was still a little unbelievable. Dad, what you said, is a bit too exaggerated. India is a democratic country after all. How can such a thing happen again? HMPH, when you actually go to India and get to know this country, you will know that what I just said is just the tip of the iceberg. There are many more discrimination phenomena that are far beyond your imagination. In short, according to a Chinese friend I know once said, India is a country composed of 100 million people and 1 billion livestock. Old Card said coldly, Dad, how can you say that about your own country? After all, we are all Indians. Little Card said with some dissatisfaction. Old Card shook his head and said, I want to treat India as my own country, but unfortunately India doesn't treat me as a human being. Forget it, you can go back and have a look. At least after going back and seeing it, you will know how wonderful life is now. After that, he turned and left Little Card's room. P.S. I have been writing books on Kidian for more than a year. I have encountered rewards many times, but it is indeed the first time for the leader to be rewarded. So here I solemnly thank the fallen angel classmate. According to my previous promise, if the leader adds 1 chapter, then the leader will have 10 chapters. From today, under the condition of 2 chapters per day, I will add 1 chapter for the leader every day until 10 chapters are completed. At the same time, please other local tyrant book friends, use the leader and the leader to tire me to death. 1 chapter for the leader, 2 chapters for the hall master, and 3 chapters for the guardian. In fact, it is 10,000 book coins to add 1 chapter. You can do the same. Chapter 166 Discrimination. In the end, the arrogant Little Card came to India unwilling to give up, but as soon as he arrived in New Delhi, he suffered a blow. Naturally, the first thing he did, after getting off the plane, was to find a hotel. With Card's wealth, he would not stay in a hotel lower than a 4-star hotel, so he took a taxi directly to the Leela Palace Hotel in New Delhi, which has an Indian style. Everything went very smoothly at the beginning, but when the front desk lady was checking in for him, her face suddenly changed, and she said coldly, I'm sorry, sir, I checked carefully and there are currently no vacancies in our hotel room. From the spring breeze to the coldness, this huge gap made it difficult for Little Card to accept. So he asked, just now you said that there are rooms of various grades. How come they are all full now? The front desk lady still replied coldly, I'm sorry, sir, it was my negligence just now. I didn't check carefully. Our hotel is indeed full. Although the language was very polite, there was no apology in her tone and expression. This made Little Card very angry, so he said angrily, Humph, you don't make any money from me. Do you think New Delhi is not just a 5-star hotel like yours? Then he turned around and left. But the strange thing is that he went to 3 hotels next, and the results were similar. They were all rejected when checking in. After his inquiries, a kind account manager reminded him, Sir, you can try your luck at a foreign-owned hotel. There should be rooms that satisfy you. Foreign-funded hotels? Why are there rooms there but none of your domestic hotels have rooms? Little card asked, still unwillingly point, but the account manager just smiled and refused to answer his question. In desperation, little card had to come to the Four Seasons Hotel. Sure enough, this world-class international luxury hotel chain has all kinds of guest rooms, and the service attitude is very good. There is no huge gap like before. After checking in, little card couldn't help but asked curiously, why do all the 5-star hotels in India today tell me that they have no rooms, but all of your foreign-funded hotels have them? The waiter rolled his eyes and thought for a moment, and understood what was going on. So he smiled and replied, Mr. Card, if your passport showed American citizenship, you would not be in this situation. Ah, what's going on? Can't Indians stay in 5-star hotels in India? Although little card had long known that he was being targeted today, he never thought that it would be because of his nationality. The waiter hesitated for a moment and then replied, it seems that Mr. Card, you don't know much about India's national conditions. How should I put it? Some people in India cannot stay in 5-star hotels, even if they are rich, and some people yes. But in foreign funded hotels, there is no such scruple. As long as you have money, you are our most valued customer. Then what is the standard for distinguishing Indians? Little card asked. Haha, Mr. Card, I believe you don't want to know this answer, because you will be very sad after knowing it. Although the waiter did not tell him the answer, little Kada had already had a vague guess. This guess came when he went to worship at the Lakshmi Narayan temple, the most famous temple in New Delhi in the landmark building. This was completely and embarrassingly confirmed because he was mercilessly kicked out by the temple staff, and they directly said, Dalits are not qualified to come in to worship Lord Vishnu. At that time, Card became angry. What? Are you looking down on people? It's not like I can't afford the offering. Why shouldn't I be allowed in? As a result, they replied contemptuously, what's wrong with being rich? No matter how rich you are just a humble Dalit, and you are not qualified to enter the noble temple. This is true until Nepal in 2001. Dalits are only allowed to enter temples and worship in India. This is only in some big cities. In small places, Dalits and upper castes are still not allowed to worship in the same temple or drink from the same well. At this time, little Card was extremely angry. What made him even more angry was that everyone around him looked taken for granted. Only one American tourist quietly dragged him away and said, are you Indian? Little Card hesitated. Then he replied, I'm Indian, but I grew up in the United States. This is my first time coming to India. I didn't expect to be treated like this. It was obvious that this American backpacker was an expert in India. He said to little Card very sympathetically, oh my god, then I understand. Maybe the problem lies in your last name. I don't understand what these Indians are, how to distinguish between caste and caste, but this kind of discrimination is ubiquitous in New Delhi and even in India. Ah, is this also the case in other parts of India? Little Card asked in disbelief. The American backpacker nodded and replied, yes, the whole of India and even Nepal are like this. And New Delhi is a little better as a big city. If you go to the countryside below, the discrimination will be more serious. Food, accommodation, even the carriages in the train have caste restrictions. Anyway, I think it is a disaster for people of lower castes to be born in India. At this time, little Cade recalled what his father had said before. In India, Dalits are not human beings and are even worse than livestock. They live a life of being bullied and humbled to the ground. He originally thought that these were all his father's exaggerations, but now it seems that all of this is true. The only thing to be thankful for is that the lovely Amisha has also lived in the United States since she was a child. Her mind has not been brainwashed by this damn caste system, because in her relationship with her, she did not feel any discrimination about her surname. She even took the initiative to invite herself to her birthday party. The only thing that is a bit annoying is that she has always insisted that she has a boyfriend, but she has never seen this man, and even if she has one, what does it matter? Anyway, Amisha is not married yet. Can everyone compete fairly? This birthday party is the best opportunity. P.S. I strongly recommend the web drama UZUI. Although it is not exactly the same as the original work, it is a rare boutique in the web drama. Zhang Yishan really performed the bitch use bitch. Alas, if there were no 3 more tasks today, I really want to finish it in one breath. Chapter 167 Not Qualified. Kirkle, a writer and psychoanalyst, once said, if there were enough rockets and spaceships in the world, I dare say that the first big space wedding would definitely be held by an Indian. This is not about marrying the left and right. We should be like our neighbors, but we should do it better than our neighbors, so that our neighbors will beat their chests when they see it. Indian weddings are a combination of luxury and tradition, which not only shines with the splendor of luxury, but also inherits the simplicity of ancient traditions. In fact, not only weddings, but private receptions and banquets are also ways for India's richest people to show off their status and wealth. As a well-established family in New Delhi, the banquets held by the Patala family are naturally of a very high standard. Little Card thought that his vision was not low, but when he walked into Amis's birthday party venue, he couldn't help but be stunned. This is not a hotel banquet hall. It is simply an ancient Indian palace. Well, thinking about this, he couldn't help but feel a little depressed. Such a good hotel actually refused to let him stay in it before. If he hadn't been invited by Amisa today, it's not sure whether he could get in. While he was in a daze, Amisa, who was standing at the door to greet the guests, greeted her warmly. Hello, Card. Welcome to my birthday party. I hope you can have a good time tonight. Only then did Card notice Amisha, who was dressed up for the occasion. He found that Amisha looked particularly charming after wearing a traditional Indian sari and carefully dressed up, so he praised, Amisha, you are so beautiful tonight. Yes. As he said this, he took a step forward, opened his arms, and wanted to hug Amisha. However, the old Patala, who had been watching eagerly from the side, blocked it with a cold face, and then said, Mr. Card, this is India, and the American etiquette does not apply here. Although he knew that old Patala was Amis's grandfather, little Cade was still very unhappy about being interrupted, so he defended, I'm sorry, sir. I'm Indian. Old Patala snorted coldly and said, Humph, if you really think you are an Indian, you won't be able to get through this door at all. Seeing that the two of them were about to quarrel, Amisha quickly dissuaded her. Okay, you guys should stop talking. Card, you can go in and have a drink first. The banquet will start at 6 o'clock, so little Card had no choice but to walk in angrily. But what happened next made him even more depressed. He found that, no matter how enthusiastic and proactive he was, no one clinked glasses with him or talked to him as if he was like a disaster star. Everyone stayed away from each other. No one even touched the snack that they picked up or the plate of snacks just when little Card was feeling depressed. Suddenly, a tall, handsome young man came over, raised his glass and said, hello, are you Mr. Card? Card was very puzzled. He didn't seem to know this guy, so how did he know his name? So he asked curiously, hello, sir, I'm Card. Where are we? Have you seen it? The young man shook his head and said, no, I have not seen you. I have only heard of your name and identity. Oh, then how did you recognize me? Little Card asked. The young man smiled slightly and explained, this is really too simple, because you are the only scheduled caste guest in this venue, so I found you at a glance. A term used by the colonists for untouchables in India. It is still used after India's independence. Although there is no difference in essence, it sounds better. Little Card nodded dejectedly and said, well, okay, you are right. I'm the only one who is isolated in the whole venue now, so it must be very easy to find. But I still don't understand. Everyone's physical characteristics, it's almost the same. So how did you find out that I'm a scheduled caste? The young man pondered for a moment and then replied, Mr. Card, you must have never lived in India. If you grew up in India, then it is almost impossible to distinguish a person's caste, especially a man's caste. It's an instinct that can be judged by just looking at it for a second. Of course, it's a little more difficult for people like you who have lived abroad since childhood, but it only takes a few more seconds to judge. Come out. The easiest way is to look at the holy line. As he spoke, the young man shook the coil woven from 3 thin threads on his wrist and said, I think you must know the caste system in India, right? High caste men have to perform the ritual of wearing a sacred thread when they are born, so those with coils are of high caste, and those without coils are of lower caste. Then the specific caste class is distinguished by the material of the coil. Vaishya's coil is made of wool, Kshatriya's is made of linen, and Brahmin's is made of cotton. Little Card carefully identified the coil on the young man's hand, and then asked with some uncertainty, "Then this is cotton thread? Does that mean you are a Brahmin?" The young man nodded and said, "Well, that's right. You're right. You can tell by looking at it. Thank you for your advice. By the way, after chatting for so long, I still don't know your name." "How rude." Little Card asked apologetically. "My name is Shakru Pandit. Nice to meet you." The young man replied with a slight smile. "Shakru Pandit? This name sounds so familiar. I seem to have heard it somewhere, and more than once." After thinking for a long time, Little Cade suddenly remembered and exclaimed, "You are Shakru Pandit, Shakru brother mentioned by Amisa, her boyfriend, my rival in love." Shakru nodded and said, "Yes, I'm Amisa's boyfriend, but I don't admit that you are my rival in love, because you are not qualified to be a rival in love." Hearing this, Little Cade was immediately furious. "Mr. Pandit, your words are too insulting. As long as Amisa is not married, if you are married, then anyone has the right to pursue her. Yes, indeed anyone can pursue her, but the problem is that you have no chance of success, so how can you become my rival in love? You just knew Amisa earlier than me, otherwise the person next to her now must be me instead of you. No, 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 even if you knew Amisa earlier than me, you would never succeed, because Amisa is an Indian girl, and a high caste girl, and you, who are from a Dalit family, are doomed to fail from the beginning, and you can never change it." Chapter 168, Unwilling Alliance Leader adds extra content. "Humph, Mr. Pandit, if I remember correctly, your company has just released a new movie called Win the Heart which promotes freedom of love. How come you have become a defender of traditional concepts in reality? This double standard is too obvious." Little Card sneered. Shakru took a sip of the red wine in his glass and replied calmly, "I work in movies, so I know more about movies than you do. Generally speaking, what is shown in movies is everyone's aspirations and dreams, and there is a distance in real life. If it is exactly the same as real life, then who will watch the movie? The reason why I filmed Win the Heart to promote the freedom of love is because in reality, love in India is not free and almost all marriages are arranged. Point in the Hindu marriage system, a girl can only have a straight marriage, and not a reverse marriage. That is, she can only marry a boy with a higher caste than her own, but cannot marry a boy with a lower caste than her. That will make her parents, her whole family is ashamed, because a girl's caste must follow that of her husband. If she marries an untouchable, she will also be an untouchable in the future. What is the living conditions of untouchables in India? I believe you. I've gained some experience over the past few days. Okay, it turns out that you are the one behind everything that has hindered me these past few days." Little Card said angrily. Shakru shook his head and replied, "No, no, no, Mr. Card, please don't think too highly of me, let alone yourself. Don't think too highly of me, because although I have some power in New Delhi, I haven't yet to the extent that it can influence all 5-star hotels, high-end cafes, Talayan temples and those who are here today as a distinguished guest. The treatment you have received these days is what every Dalit will encounter in India. There are even many situations that you have not experienced yet. For this, you have to thank you for having a rich and good father. He provided you with financial support, otherwise you would not be so comfortable these days. As for not thinking too highly of yourself, it's because there's really no need to spend so much money on you. No matter how you look at it, you are no match for me. In terms of love, Amisha likes me now. In terms of ability, I started from scratch and achieved what I'm now in just 3 years, and you are just a rich second generation. In terms of assets, I should be able to do it with just gang medicine. Far more than your father's supermarket group, right? And look at it. Now those who are singing and dancing on stage to celebrate Amisa's birthday are all my artists. Can you do this? You. Little Cade was so angry at Shaklu's merciless sarcasm that he was almost speechless. After saying you for a long time, He reluctantly said, "Don't worry, you won't be proud for long. I don't believe it anymore. There are things in this world that can't be done with money. High castes and low castes are nothing in front of dollars. You wait for me." After saying that, he turned around and left angrily. After he left, Vibalova stepped forward and asked, "Boss, do you need me to send someone to keep an eye on him?" Shakru shook the wine glass in his hand and said calmly, "No need. You have to remember that this is India, not the United States. A young guy like him who only wastes money will never be able to eat it. Besides, I believe I won't give him that much money to let him mess around here." Sure enough, when little Card returned to the hotel and asked for money from his father, Old Card, he was rejected. Son. Although what that pandit said didn't sound good, he told the truth. That's how it is in India. It is almost a joke that a Dalit wants to marry a Brahmin. Don't say that the girl named Amisa doesn't like you. Even if she likes you, her family will never agree. The Napatala family is an old Brahmin family and has been a prominent nobleman for hundreds of years. How could such a family be willing to hang their own daughter or granddaughter with their own hands? They will never be allowed to marry a Kshatriya, let alone a Dalit. And that pandit, his Ganges pharmaceutical factory is now very famous, and the famous vegan is exclusively produced by his pharmaceutical factory. How could the Patala family be willing to miss such a young talent? So, Kit, you'd better come back. No, I'm not willing to accept it. I must defeat this pandit and make these high caste people who look down on others lower their heads. Little Card said unwillingly. Old Card patiently advised, "Okay, Kit, I can understand your mood, but tell me, what can you do to make the upper castes bow their heads?" Little Card was a little speechless for a moment. Originally, what he just said was an angry talk, and he had never thought about a specific action plan. Fortunately, he had an idea at this time and said, there is no good solution for the time being, but I don't believe that all Indians are satisfied with this backward and decadent system. There will always be people who want to resist, and there will always be people who can think of good solutions." Old Card sneered, "Child, do you think no one has thought about resisting this system for so many years? In fact, there are always people doing it, but why no one succeeds? Because the untouchables are too poor and their status is too low. So few people receive education. Natural elite there are only a few, and occasionally there are a few elites, but they have been corrupted by the nobles. Although those nobles know that this system is unfair and inhumane, they are vested interests, so how can they oppose it? Doesn't it mean they are having trouble with themselves?" "Father, I know what you said makes sense, but I really don't want to go back like this. I have to try again. I heard that there are many untouchable college students now, and there must be talents who are not content with the status quo. We have capital, and they have talents. As long as we cooperate, we can definitely develop. In fact, the managers in Pandit's pharmaceutical factory are all low-caste college students except his personal secretary. Since he can succeed, then I can also succeed." Although Old Cade did not think that his son was a business genius, this was the first time he wanted to try to start a business. In any case, it is always a good thing to have such an idea. At this time, he should not discourage his enthusiasm. Even if he fails in the end, he can accumulate some experience, which is a good thing for the group that accepts him in the future. So he agreed, "Okay, I can provide capital for you to try, but your project must be reviewed by me." Chapter 169 Invitation. Just as Little Card and Old Card were arguing, Amisa's party had just entered. According to the traditional etiquette of this kind of birthday party, the first song, after blowing out the birthday candles, is for the birthday host to freely choose a dance partner. If the host has a liking for someone of the opposite sex present, he or she will be invited to dance. If there is no first dance, then one's elders will be invited to dance. Initially, everyone thought that Amisa's partner for her first dance would be her grandfather Patala, but to everyone's surprise, Amisa walked up to Shakru and took the initiative to extend her hand, which made everyone present not surprised. Because although the Patara family currently does not have a particularly well-known rich man or a politician with real power, the family's heritage is really rich. After hundreds of years of development, the power of the Patara family has penetrated into all aspects of New Delhi. So even if Missa is already quite old now, but the boys who pursue her are still attracted by her. Although old Patala had brought Shakru to some receptions such as those of the Tata group, today Mrs. This move completely disclosed the relationship between the two. There was a lot of discussion in the audience for a while, and some people exclaimed in low voices, "Oh my god, old Patala's granddaughter actually took the initiative to invite a boy to the first dance." I read that right, others echoed, "Yes, yes." It is said that old Patala is very fond of his granddaughter. He has rejected many people who proposed marriage. Who is this lucky boy? He can actually pass through their family. Many tests there are even those who can't eat grapes and find them sour. I don't think this guy looks very good. He's not as energetic as me. Why are old Patala and Amisa so ignorant? Finally, there was someone who understood next to him, and he immediately refuted, "Don't talk nonsense if you don't know. I don't even know this guy, but I have the nerve to open my mouth here. Let me tell you, this young man is Shakru, the business wizard who has emerged the fastest in the past 2 years. Dieter, do you know about the gang pharmaceutical factory in the eastern suburbs? You always know what you don't know about Wigan. It is produced by their pharmaceutical factory. It is the only business in the world. You can't even imagine how much money it makes." After such a reminder, someone immediately reacted. I said, why are the recently popular Kajal, Shahrukh and advertising star Aishwarya Rai just warming up? They are all from Polaris Film Company. Signed artist, and it is said that this pandit is behind it, big boss. No wonder they are here today and working so hard. This is to support my boss. This pandit is really powerful. He has both a big pharmaceutical company that makes a lot of money and a film company that has both fame and fortune. No wonder old Patala agreed with his precious granddaughter to date him. More than that, have you seen who are the people sitting next to him? On the left is Mukesh, the eldest son of Reliance Company, and on the right is Ibrahim, the most powerful gang leader in New Delhi. This pandit has a deep background. But at this time, Shakru had no intention of listening to the comments of these passers-by. After all, Amisa was waiting with her arms outstretched, so he accepted the invitation very gentlemanly, and during the dance, he leaned into Amisa's ear and said, "Amisa, the sari you wore today is so beautiful." In fact, Shakru's words are not random compliments. First, Amisha is now 17 years old and her figure has matured. Secondly, the pink sari she is wearing today is tailor-made, and it has been modified and added with many western elements, which is different from the traditional sari. Thirdly, because she was carefully dressed up for this banquet today, she looks extremely beautiful. After hearing Shakru's praise, Amisa's excited little face flushed and replied, "Brother Shakru, you can like it. In fact, I haven't worn a sari for a long time." Then she sighed in a low voice, "Brother Shakru, you know, I have been waiting for today for a long time." Silly girl, birthdays naturally come once a year. It would be boring if you couldn't celebrate it every day. Shakru replied, pretending to be confused. Amisa said, You know that's not what I meant." "Oh, what do you mean?" Shakru teased. I won't tell you." Maybe she was afraid that Shakru would be unhappy. After a while, Amisha whispered again, "Grandpa has something important to tell you after the banquet." Although Amisa didn't tell him what the specific matter was, just by looking at her appearance, Shakru could roughly guess that it was definitely old Patala who wanted to tell him about marriage. Because in traditional Indian marriages, such a public relationship is immediately followed by engagement and marriage ceremonies. Although Shakru doesn't want to get married so early, he is not opposed to this matter. After all, he will get married sooner or later, and Amisa and the Patala family are so compatible with him, so he should marry Amisa as soon as possible. It's also a good thing to come over soon. The song ended, and the two returned to their seats. Mukesh clapped his hands and congratulated Shakru. "You and Amisha are really a golden couple. I don't know when I will be able to drink your wedding wine." Hearing what Mukesh said, Amisha shyly avoided it. Shakru could only bite the bullet and replied, "Brother Mukesh, don't talk nonsense. It's not certain whether I have this blessing or not. Stop pretending. That old Patala is running around for your business every day. If he doesn't treat you as his grandson-in-law, do you think you can afford to hire our largest lawyer? Even if you do, if I can afford it, Can I try my best? I understand that, but I have a lot of problems. Apart from other things, I think everyone knows about my relationship with Pivapalava. Do you think a big family like Patara can accept it? Mukesh replied indifferently, it is only big families that are most likely to accept such things. Which successful man has only one woman by his side? As long as they do not affect Amisa's status as the wife, who can take this seriously? Otherwise, do you think that Amisa invited you to the first dance today because old Patara nodded behind her back, so you don't have to worry about this? If nothing unexpected happens, just wait for old Patara to come and talk to you about marriage tonight or tomorrow. P.S. Write about the engagement first, and then write about the marriage when it is appropriate. The main reason is that the wedding scene is too big and difficult to design. To be continued. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 170 Engagement. Sure enough, after the banquet ended that night, old Patara kept Shakru and made him a cup of coffee in his study. Then he raised his hand and said, I heard that you like to drink coffee the most. Vietnamese G7 coffee, specially prepared for you. This is really troublesome for Grandpa Patala. Shakru replied, pretending to be flattered. Old Patala waved her hands and said, why are you being so polite to me? Then she pondered for a moment and then said, little Shakru, today the matter between you and Amisa is almost made public. So next, have you ever thought about what to do next? Well, this depends on your elder's wishes. Old Patala said angrily, listen to me. I hope you two can get married tomorrow. Can you listen? Shakru scratched his head and said, it's not that I don't listen. Amisa is still in school. It's a bit too early to get married now. Old Patala said very unhappily, what you said is too early. Do you know how old Amisa is now? She is already 17. If I hadn't sent her to school in the United States, according to Indian rules, she would be 13. It was time for her to get engaged, and now you say she's getting married. It's still early. Do you know how much I have complained behind her back over the years? Besides, who says you can't get married while going to school? You should get married and go to school. There is no conflict between the two, unless your kid doesn't like it at all. Amisa, I don't want to marry her. Shaklu waved his hands repeatedly and said, how is this possible? If I didn't like Amisa, why would I take her out on a trip? And why would I dance the first dance with her today? I'm just a little worried, and you know there are other women around me, and I'm afraid Amisha won't be able to accept it. Old Patala snorted coldly and said, HMPH, I don't know what's wrong with your kid, but as long as you don't disclose your relationship with them, and promise not to neglect Amisa because of them, then these things don't matter. It's unacceptable. In fact, to be honest, how many men with a net worth like yours only have one woman? That's good. Then I will really listen to your advice on this matter. You also know that I'm alone now. My parents are not here, and there are no other elders. Old Patala pondered for a moment, and then replied, how about this? You hold an engagement ceremony first. As for the parents' problem, you can ask Mukesh to be your elder to attend some ceremonies. Anyway, he is not old enough. Almost twice as long as you. Naturally, Mukesh would not refuse the opportunity to be Shakru's elder, and he participated in it enthusiastically. Since both Patala and Mukesh are old Hindu families, they strictly follow Hindu marriage etiquette, which makes the whole process extremely complicated. Although the relationship between Shakru and Amisha can be regarded as a free love, the old Patala and Mukesh still followed the arranged marriage process, which made Shakru feel very embarrassed. After all, he had just finished filming and promoting the freedom of love to win the heart. How come it completely changes when it comes to me? The first step is for the matchmaker to be introduced by the priest. The parents of both parties will consider whether to meet and have a detailed discussion based on social class, language, region, astrology, etc. The parents and the matchmaker will check whether the two people's destinies are compatible and discuss property, status, and culture. whether the appearance, etc. are satisfactory. Since Shakru himself is the elder of the Bela temple, the matchmaker's job is personally performed by the great guru of the Bela temple. This can be said to have given Shakru enough face. As for checking whether they are compatible, it was a complete formality, and Mukesh even joked about asking Shakru, a master of divination, to divine the future of his marriage. Then according to the procedure, the issue of the bride price was discussed. Shakru was very determined on this point. He was not short of money, and did not like the Indian bride price system, so he only ordered a symbolic number and let it go. After that, the girl's parents, headed by Patilaleo, formally visited Shakru's home. Mukesh, the male parent. After the two parties agreed on the marriage between Shakru and Amisa, Patilaleo handed it over to her personally. Mukesh received a disc made of pure gold, and 1,001 rupees. This is because according to Hindu regulations, after the man and woman have reached an agreement, the woman has to give the man some gifts and money. The gifts are usually clothes, rings, candies, plates and the like, while the cash is based on the woman's own financial resources. It can be any number, but it must be an odd number, otherwise it will be considered unlucky. This is similar to the northeastern method of choosing 1 out of 10,000 for the change money. This work is mostly undertaken by the woman's father, grandfather, uncles, etc. At this point, the preparations for the engagement are all over. As for the formal engagement, it is natural to choose a good day, but the man must treat his relatives and friends to a banquet one day in advance to tell everyone about the happy event. On the day of the engagement, Shakru put on a brand new dress early, with a loose gold trimmed shirt on the upper body, loose trousers on the lower body, and a headscarf on his head. Then he sat on a wooden bench outside the venue. The girl's father, maybe a relative of the woman, puts a turmeric or red pink auspicious mole on his forehead, and then gives him a bunch of coconuts, candies, clothes, money and other things. Finally, he puts a laddu sweet in his mouth, and others give him the gift. Things for him were brought into the house. At this time, Shakru could officially enter the venue to meet Amisha. After both parties put on engagement rings for each other, the entire engagement ceremony came to an end, followed by a grand banquet, singing and dancing celebration. After the engagement, a cup-filling ceremony is held. That is, an auspicious day is chosen. The man's parents bring 1 or 2 relatives to the woman's house. They bring clothes, jewelry, toys, and candies to the future daughter-in-law, and also bring some clothes to the girl's brothers and sisters. Then the man's mother or sister-in-law puts the clothes they just brought on the girl, and puts some candies in her arms. Then the girl's father gives the man's relative something. After entertaining them for a day or 2, the man says goodbye and returns. This ceremony has 3 purposes. First, to make the relationship between the 2 parties closer. Second, to make the marriage relationship more solid. Third, through this ceremony, the girl will have more children in the future. P.S. This is already abbreviated. If the Hindu process is strictly followed, the process will be extremely complicated. When you write the marriage process, you will feel it. To be continued. Chapter 171 Earthquake. Although Shakru's engagement ceremony was very low-key, it still attracted a lot of attention. On the one hand, as the boss of a film and television company, he is half an entertainment industry person, so he will naturally be noticed by the media. On the other hand, it was because of his movie The Heart of the Woman. A person who advocates free love ended up getting engaged according to traditional etiquette. How could this not be criticized? Not only that, the film that Rajkumar told him before specifically for The Heart of the Woman has officially begun shooting, and 2 of them have been released at once. One is called Wedding, which tells the story of man and a woman who get married under the arrangement of their parents. At the end, the heroine is accidentally disfigured, and the hero resolutely marries her, and fulfills his promise to take care of her for life. This reflects the traditional beauty of arranged marriages. Although arranged marriages do not have a romantic love process, they can still be together forever. It can be said that the film shows the advantages of keeping promises in arranged marriages to a great extent, which is precisely the weakness of free love. There is no doubt that this film will definitely be welcomed by conservative people in Indian society. Moreover, the traditions promoted in the film are not immutable. The film Wedding shows the reformed arranged marriage. Before entering the marriage, the man and woman, accompanied by their parents, had 3 friendly meetings. During the meetings, they deepened their understanding of each other through chatting. This is different from the tradition of being strangers before marriage. In addition to promoting the advantages of arranged marriage, the film also tries to show the world that tradition can keep pace with the times, so there is no need to completely subvert it. Compared with the reformed arranged marriage, another film called Love, Start Over Again explores the inherent relationship between free love and arranged marriage in more detail. The man and woman in the story each experienced a memorable free love. However, the relationship eventually failed to come to fruition due to various reasons, so the two had no choice but to accept the arranged marriage and came together. From the initial misunderstanding and resistance to the final touching and love, this story not only shows the unparalleled romantic temperament of free love, it also praises the traditional advantages of arranged marriages as a reliable insurance. Most importantly, it provides young people with an open mind for marriage. Love is definitely not obtained in only one way. As long as you are willing to open your mind, let go of past relationships, and abandon your prejudice against arranged marriages, happiness is not far away from you. The 2 ultimately unsuccessful relationships in love starts over are somewhat dramatic, but most Indians do enter arranged marriages with a longing for free love. For them, this film has a great guiding significance. Since you have accepted arranged marriages, you should manage them well, and you can also get beautiful feelings. Don't linger on the colorful emotional world outside. Those feelings may not lead you into marriage. There are too many variables. You actually miss only a few relationships. You didn't miss the ultimate happiness. Compared with the previous 2 films, one praises free love, and the other praises arranged marriage. This film seems more rational and more in line with real life. For the counterattacks of these 2 movies, Shakru felt that the best way was to ignore them, otherwise it would be like using his win the heart to hype up the other party's box office. However, he did not do nothing but made up for the loss inside the embankment. He tried to gain fame for himself in other aspects. So on Dussehra, a traditional Hindu festival that originated from the worship of the river goddess, Shakru announced his latest divination results in the sacrifice of Bilur temple. A tragic earthquake will occur in the western state of India around Dussehra this year, and the number of casualties will far exceed the previous temple dispute. What Shakru said was actually the 6.3 magnitude earthquake that occurred in Maharashtra on September 30, 1993. Although the magnitude was not large, the casualties were huge. 73 villages near the epicenter of Lata were all destroyed, and more than 20,000 people died, making it the most serious earthquake in India this century. In fact, when Mukesh and others urged him to do divination at the engagement ceremony, he wanted to talk about this tragedy. But considering that it seemed unlucky to talk about such a thing on his wedding day, he suppressed it. There are many people who believe in Shakru's divination now, but these people are basically concentrated in the north. Shakru's reputation in Western India is not big enough, and his divination is too vague. The time is unclear, the date of Dussehra is not fixed, it can be held in September or October, and the location is also unclear. The area in Western India is large, so it has not attracted enough attention. Shakru can only sigh and be helpless about this. The only thing he can do is to try to restrain the people around him from going to Western India in recent months. In fact, he remembers that the epicenter was later in Maharashtra, and the specific time was the early morning of September 30th, but he dare not say it. After all, if he says it too detailed, he may be regarded as a monster. This vagueness is the best effect. Even so, Mukesh joked with him, "Little Shakru, I find you are simply a disaster star. You only report bad news but not good news. Why don't I see any good news from your divination?" Shakru replied helplessly, "What can I do about this? You know my divination skills. What I can predict depends entirely on God's will." At this point, he suddenly remembered something and said to Mukesh, "By the way, don't say there is no good news. I predicted that your brother Mukesh will become the richest man in India in the future. Don't tease me. I'm not sure if I can inherit my family's Reliance Group in the future, and I'm the richest man in India." Mukesh said indifferently. Shakru said very seriously, "Don't disbelieve it. This is definitely true. not only is the Reliance Group yours, but you will also be the richest man in India. However, you have to wait for a few years. About 10 years later, Mukesh said speechlessly, you used such an ancient trick to fool me, and you pushed me to 10 years later. Isn't this a common trick used by those scammers? Why should I lie to you? I won't get any benefits. I really hope that you can become the richest man in India, and then I will follow you to get some benefits. Well, I'll borrow your good words. If I become the richest man in India, I will agree to one condition of yours. Okay, I don't want anything else, just a house you don't want in the future. Chapter 172 Prepare for a rainy day. After hearing Shakru's request, Mukesh was a little puzzled. Do you, the big boss pandit, still lack a house? Don't worry about this. Anyway, when the time comes, I won't care if you want a house you can't live in. Just don't be reluctant to give it to me. Cheng. You've already spoken. Let alone the house I don't live in. I can give it to you, even the house I live in now. But what should you do if your divination is wrong? If you fail to take over the Prudential Group in 10 years, how about I pay you $1 million? Okay, it's settled then. Plus this bet may seem like a child's play, but actually Shakru feels that the 27-story Indilya built by Mukesh at a cost of $1 billion, and Dilya is an island in ancient Indian mythology, is too much. It was a pity, so he planned to reuse it. Of course, he couldn't give Mukesh just $1 million. Facts have once again proved that Shakru's ritual divination is extremely effective. At 3:50 in the morning on September 30th, a major earthquake occurred in Latur, Maharashtra. It destroyed 73 surrounding villages and caused at least 30,000 casualties. For a time, this tragic earthquake shocked the world. The reasons for the high mortality rate from the Latur earthquake are: first, the area is densely populated. Second, the earthquake occurred in the early morning, when people were asleep at home. And more importantly, the architectural characteristics of local residents' houses. Latur is a poor agricultural area. Local residents lack earthquake experience. Most of their houses are built with stones and adobe. The walls are thick but not strong. The houses have no foundations and have poor earthquake resistance. Once an earthquake occurs, the houses will collapse. Stones and adobes fell one after another, turning into a pile of rubble, burying the sleeping people inside. The rubble piles formed by earth and rocks do not form a small space for the buried people to survive like the cement pillar boards of modern buildings. From the rescue and excavation, it can be found that there are few survivors of the people buried in the rubble piles, so the death toll is extremely high. After the Latur earthquake, Advani, chairman of India's largest opposition party, the Bharatiya Janata Party, accused the Indian government of failing to provide advance warning to local residents, which led to the death of so many people. He said that local residents reported that at least 1,500 small earthquakes had occurred in the Latur area since September 1992. On September 19th this year, a stronger earthquake occurred in the Hera area near Latur, and the Indian government always turning a blind eye to this. He also claimed that as early as more than 2 months ago, Shakru, the elder of the Bila temple and the contemporary inheritor of priestly divination, had successfully divined that a major earthquake would occur nearby, but the local government did not cause enough concern. Pay attention, otherwise if arrangements and evacuation are carried out in advance, the losses will never be as great as they are now. However, Indian geological experts believe that the past few major earthquakes in India have occurred in the northern region near the Himalayas, and Maharashtra has not been considered a region where major earthquakes are likely to occur. We are confused and need to conduct an investigation to see if the cracks in the rock crust in this area are active, said Paddy, Deputy Director of the Geological Survey of India. He said that the Latur area is the oldest and solid rock formation in the South Asian subcontinent. Tectonically, the Geological Survey of India has always believed that serious earthquakes will not occur in this area. Some Indian public opinion believes that the newly built large reservoirs are the cause of the increase in earthquakes in India in recent years, but experts have never expressed support for this. Although the earthquake was devastating, it had no impact on Shakru. What he was most worried about at the moment was the Great Plague in India a year later. Although not many people died from this plague, but the impact was huge. According to the scene in the report, it was like a virus attack in a doomsday novel. For a time, New Delhi, Mumbai, Kolkata and other places were all plunged into panic, and the economic blow was even greater. At that time many countries have interrupted various cooperation projects with India, and the tourism and hotel industries have suffered a devastating blow point, although Shakru just bought a hotel. However, since the hotel is being renovated, and the layout is being changed, there is no impact yet. The most worrying thing is his pharmaceutical factory. If the plague next year is really as tragic as he remembered, then his Welgan career will be in trouble. First of all, in such a panic situation, your own pharmaceutical factory will definitely not be able to produce normally. Secondly, even if you can barely produce it, if external dealers and customers are concerned about the Indian plague, it will definitely affect the sales of the product. Although he can afford the losses of a few months, the market will never wait for him for a few months. The market gap left by Welgan will definitely be replaced by other similar products. He will try to regain the market after the plague crisis has passed. That is not a simple matter, therefore, Shakru felt that he had to prepare for a rainy day and prepare a retreat before the plague broke out. After careful consideration, Shakru decided to open a branch factory abroad, and the location of this branch factory became a very headache for him. Problem point in Shakru's eyes, the best workers in the world are those in socialist countries, especially those of the older generation who are simple-minded, work conscientiously and hard-working and bear no complaints, and their wages are particularly low. Especially in China and North Korea, workers are even more exemplary. Not to mention workers from other countries. Even Chinese workers born in the 1980s cannot compare with them. Relatively speaking, Shakru prefers North Korean workers because now is the period of North Korea's great march of suffering. It is estimated that, as long as they are given a salary that can support their families and not starve to death, there will be a lot of people to apply for the job. Unfortunately, not to mention himself as an Indian, even Chinese people are not qualified to open factories in North Korea. In fact, it is not that the salary of Chinese workers is so high. In 1993, even employees of state-owned enterprises only earned 100 yuan a month. But the problem is that at this time, China has not yet entered the golden period of foreign investment in the reform of state-owned enterprises, and a large number of workers have been laid off. It is difficult to recruit suitable workers to open factories in China. After all, in the eyes of Chinese people, the iron rice bowl of state-owned enterprises is much more reliable than that of foreign bosses. Just when Shakru was thinking about whether to take the risk to open a factory in the Soviet Union, in fact, the skills and quality of the workers of the old Russians are also good, but it is too chaotic there now. Fortunately, he can have Toktakhanov to help him calm down. But just when Shakru was hesitating, a sudden call from Liu Xian made him change his mind. Chapter 173 Succession, Alliance Leader adds extra chapter. As soon as Shakru answered the phone, he heard Liu Xian shouting on the other end, "Hey, Laosha, what you did is so uninteresting. You are engaged to Sister Amisha at such a big date. You didn't even tell me about the happy event. Do you think you can treat me as a friend?" If Xiaojing hadn't called Amisha, I wouldn't have known about it until now. I'm sorry. I didn't plan to have a big engagement ceremony, so I didn't notify you. I was afraid that it would be too troublesome to bring you all the way here. Don't worry, I will definitely invite you when the wedding comes. As long as you don't feel bad about it then. Our Indian wedding ceremony is too troublesome, Shakru complained repeatedly. I asked you to say this. I have to come over for this kind of happy event even if it's troublesome. At this point, Liu Xian seemed to suddenly remember something and said again, by the way, Laosha, you seem to still owe I can't do anything, right? This question surprised Shakru. Huh? No way. Did I promise you anything else? Look, I know you definitely didn't keep my things in mind. Think about it for yourself. What did you tell me when you decided to cooperate with Harbin Pharmaceutical? It will definitely happen in half a year. Find a new project for Changchun. But even if half a year or a year has passed, you still have no faith at all. Well, I'm sorry. It's really my fault. You know how busy I'm this year. I've been so busy all day that I forgot about this. Shakru replied awkwardly. Liu Zan teased. I know you are busy with things, but now that you are engaged and married, you don't seem to be in a hurry to get married in the next 2 years, so you can take the time to do it, so that I don't have to worry about it every time. The first time I went to Xiaojing's house, her father glared at me as if I had driven you away from Changchun. Shakru thought about it for a moment and then replied with some embarrassment. Old Liu, it's not that I won't help with this matter, it's just that I can't find a suitable cooperation project for the time being. Liu Zion said unhappily. No, Laosha, this matter is actually very simple for you. Why don't you just open a branch factory here with us? What you said is simple. There are many things involved in opening a factory. If I open a pharmaceutical factory in Changchun, I can't send workers from India. But can I recruit workers in Changchun? If you can solve the workers' problems for me, and I'll go to Changchun to open a branch immediately, Shakru said angrily. But to Shaklu's surprise, Liu Zan on the other end of the phone said very excitedly, hey, Laosha, this is what you said. If I really find a worker for you in Changchun, you will come over tomorrow. Open a branch. To be on the safe side, Shakru added, what I want are skilled workers. You can't find some idle vagrants in society to fill the gap. Unexpectedly, Liu Zan still promised, don't worry, they are all veteran workers with at least 30 years of work experience. But you have to guarantee that the salary cannot be too different from that of state-owned factories. Liu Zion's attitude made Shakru very curious, so he asked, don't worry about the salary. It will be at least double that of a state-owned factory. But where will you find workers for me? It's not like I'm not familiar with China. Is it unrealistic for those old workers to give up their iron jobs in state-owned factories to work for me, an Indian capitalist? Liu Zion sighed and explained. Compared to other foreigners, Laosha, you are indeed a China expert, but you are not Chinese after all. There is a proper term called succession. Do you understand? The word successor may not be very clear to those born in the 1990s. However, in the 1990s in China, especially in enterprises and institutions in the Northeast, this was a very common employment phenomenon. Its standard name should be child replacement. Employment system means that after parents retire or quit their jobs, their children will go through the procedures to take the vacant places and enter their parents' original workplace to work point. Although the country began to rectify and stop this system in 1986, in fact it was not until the late 1990s that this phenomenon gradually disappeared. Even until 2010, this phenomenon still existed in units such as the electric power industry and oil fields at this time. Shakru roughly understood what Liu Zan meant, so he asked tentatively, are you saying that many old workers have retired and left their jobs in order to free up jobs for their children, so I can hire them to work for me? Work in a pharmaceutical factory? Liu Zan nodded and said, yes, that's what I mean. Don't you know? There are more and more people and fewer positions. But if young people don't have a formal job, they can't find a partner at all. So the elderly at home can only take the initiative to retire to make room for their children. In fact, many people are I'm not old yet, I haven't even reached 50 yet. Isn't it a waste of resources to retire now? Moreover, it would be better if there is only one child in the family. If there are many children in the family, there will be a lot of troubles. So I can guarantee that, as long as your salary level is not low and the work intensity is not difficult, this worker will definitely be easy to recruit. Hearing this, Shakru couldn't help but sigh. Chinese parents are definitely the best and hardest parents in the world. They are absolutely devoted to their children. Not to mention that they have the ability. Even if they don't have the ability, they will do their best to make their children eat well, dress well, and live comfortably. On the one hand, this is due to China's traditional concepts, and on the other hand, it is because this generation has experienced too much suffering, and they don't want their children to suffer again. If this were to happen in other countries, who will care about you after you grow up? Therefore, the succession phenomenon Liu Zan mentioned is very normal. After all, there are limited positions in state-owned enterprises. If the old people don't retire, the new people can't come in. In the early 1990s, starting a business or working was not popular. so the old people had to be sacrificed to support the young. After thinking about it, Shakru felt that what Liu Zhan said was reliable, so he said, in that case, I can go and investigate. In fact, I really plan to open a branch abroad recently. Shakru's answer made Liu Zhan very excited. Are you serious, Liu Shan? Are you really going to open a pharmaceutical factory in Changshan? And also open a branch of your Hang Pharmaceutical? Yes, but whether it is in Changshan or not will have to wait for me to make a careful investigation before deciding. After all, such a big thing can't be decided just by talking over the phone. Don't you think so? Chapter 174, Secret Obstruction. Although Liu Zhan promised very well verbally, he and Shakru were dumbfounded when it came time to actually recruit workers. They originally thought that there should be a large number of applicants during the recruitment, but in fact there were only very few applicants, which made Shakru very upset. Depressed, he complained, "Old Liu, your information is not accurate. It's been almost a week. Why are there so many people here? And most of them are just messing around. They have no skills or experience at all. You are so deceptive, Liu." Zion also retorted somewhat unhappily. "Liu Sha, you can't say that. Look at the standard of hospitality you received when you came back this time. The mayor of Changshan City personally greeted you, and all the procedures were given the green light. And how much do you charge for such a good factory in such a good location? And you still say that I don't try my best." Although Liu Zhan told the truth, these matters actually have little to do with him. At most, he only played a role of go-between. Most of the preferential policies were because Wang Jing's father valued Shaklu's constant efforts and the tax prospects of medicine and the birth of one under his own auspices, the importance of a large foreign-funded enterprise. This gave the green light all the way, and all procedures were simplified and expedited. However, although he could help Shakru in other aspects, he was powerless when it came to workers. After all, it was not yet the time for state-owned enterprises to be sold or jointly owned. He wouldn't dare to do such a thing. Just when both Shaklu and Liu Zhan were having a headache about recruiting workers, someone knocked on the door of Shaklu's temporary office. The person who came was a young and shrewd-looking Chinese man. Although Shaklu crew looked familiar to him, but couldn't remember it for a moment. Fortunately, the young man took the initiative to introduce himself. "Hello Mr. Pandit, I'm an employee of your Gang Pharmaceutical No. 1 branch. My name is Lu Han." Although Shaklu could understand it completely, he still pretended to be confused and said, Please speak more slowly. I'm not very good at learning Chinese. I can read books, but it sounds difficult." Then he asked again, "Excuse me, Mr. Lu, do you have anything to do with me?" Lu Han nodded and bowed and said, "I see that our factory seems to have encountered some difficulties in recruiting workers recently. I have some immature ideas here, and I want to tell you, Mr. Pandit." Before Shaklu could speak, Liu Zhan on the other side came over and asked, "Do you really have a way? Then tell me quickly and listen. I'm worried about this matter. Come, sit down and talk." Although Liu Zhan asked him to sit down, Lu Han only sat down halfway and then said slowly, "Actually, the wages in our factory are not low, even higher than those in state-owned factories. The reason why there are fewer people coming now is, the main reason is, that some people are spreading rumors in private, saying that our factory is a factory run by capitalists. It will not last long in a socialist country, and will become a yellow stall within a few years. Moreover, they say that capitalists exploit workers very hard, and they have to do a lot of work every day without being paid, so no one dares to apply." Upon hearing this, Liu Zhan immediately became angry and cursed. Who the hell is spreading rumors? If Liu Sha was that kind of person, how could the city spend so much effort to invite him? You tell me whoever spread the rumors, I will send people to arrest him immediately. Lu Han didn't know Liu Zhan, and didn't know how rich his background was, so he replied with some fear, "I don't dare to say it. If he finds out that it was me who said it, then I will be in trouble. And he is very powerful and has friends in the police station, so you may not be able to catch him." Liu Zhan laughed dumbly and said, "Hey, I don't believe it. There are still people in Changshan who dare to retaliate against me. Just tell me who they are. I will take people there today to punish him for disrupting economic development." Seeing That Luhan still didn't dare to speak. Shakru smiled and said, okay, Laoliu, don't make it difficult for him. The only people who have enmity with me in Changchun are the people from the pharmaceutical factory, and I guess it's not their factory. The leader is the sales section chief named Wu Mingqi. There can be no one else. But now is not the time to arrest him. The top priority now is how to dispel everyone's concerns, and then we have enough time and means to deal with this villain. In fact, Shakru guessed it right. The guy who was causing trouble behind the scenes was Wu Mingqi, the former sales section chief of the pharmaceutical factory. But now he is no longer the sales section chief, but has been demoted to an idle position in the logistics. This status, the huge gap in his career, made him hate Shakru and gritted his teeth. But usually he has no chance to retaliate. After all, the connection between Shakru and Changchun has been severed. But when Shakru came to Changchun with great fanfare to open the first branch of Gang Pharmaceutical Factory, he felt revengeful. When the opportunity came, he began to spread rumors behind his back. What you said makes sense, but to be honest, this concern is difficult to eliminate. After all, the reputation of you capitalists in China is really bad. Whether it is novels or movies, you are basically the villain. Now someone is taking the opportunity to exaggerate. If someone spreads a rumor, tell me how to eliminate it. Liu Zhan said worriedly point before Shakru could answer. Luhan said on the side, actually, this matter is not troublesome to solve. As long as you, boss, are willing to do this, I believe there will be many people applying for the job. I don't know why, but after listening to Luhan's words, the words leading party flashed in Shakru's mind. However, I have to say that Luhan's suggestion has a really high chance of success, at least better than Shakru's. This Chinese living in 2016 and Liu Zhan, the method that a superior asterisk came up with was much more down to earth. So Shakru patted Luhan on the shoulder and said, okay, then try your method. If it succeeds, you can come. Propaganda department, work hard. The position of propaganda department director is still vacant. Shakru's promise made Luhan excited. Where is the propaganda department? They are office administrators. They are much better than working hard in the workshop, and they might even be the director in the future. Isn't that why I racked my brains to come up with ideas? So I nodded repeatedly and said, boss, you can rest assured to complete the task. At this time, Liu Zhan, who was on the side, sighed and said, but if you act like this, then the pharmaceutical factory will be busy. Market. Economy. That's how it should be. Shakru replied nonchalantly. PS. I wish everyone a happy Children's Day. Chapter 175 show. Workers' new village is located in the northwest of the old city of Changchun, adjacent to the connected industrial zone. The people living here are workers from major state-owned enterprises in Changchun. Since the completion of the residential area until now, the life of the workers here has almost been day-to-day calm, without any disturbance at all. But just today, as a truck full of supplies entered the community, the stagnant calm was broken. There were all kinds of discussions, all kinds of dissatisfaction, all kinds of showing off. It seemed that in an instant, this peaceful residential area was filled. This truck filled with supplies belongs to Gang Pharmaceutical No. 1 branch. This is a new pharmaceutical factory solely owned by Indians. It has not yet officially started construction and is in the renovation and recruitment stage. Although there are many unemployed workers in residential areas, not many people apply for jobs because everyone is talking that the boss of this pharmaceutical factory is a capitalist from India, and those who apply for jobs will be exploited by capitalists in the future. How ruthless is the exploitation of capitalists? Everyone is here. I have seen it many times in books and movies. You have to work more than 10 hours a day, and you are violently supervised by ruthless supervisors, and the salary is so pitiful that you can't even fill your stomach. Amidst this discussion, no one expected that the unscrupulous capitalist actually came to the workers' new village in person, and with him came a whole truck of supplies, saying that he was visiting the workers' homes during the double 9th festival to express condolences to the families of the employees visiting, and expressing condolences to workers' homes is something that business leaders in socialist countries only do during the holidays. How come now capitalists have also learned to do it, and this capitalist is not low-key at all, and even invited market leaders at TV station Inside came to follow and record the scene. Such a lively scene naturally attracted enthusiastic onlookers from the residents of the community point. Although this capitalist is from India, he has fair skin and big eyes, which makes him look quite pleasing to the eye. What surprised everyone the most is that this capitalist can actually speak Chinese. Although what he speaks is not very authentic, it is already very good. Remarkable point: after entering the community, the capitalist visited the workers who had officially joined their factory one by one according to a list. Not only did he promise to increase everyone's salary by 50%, he also gave each of them a large box of fruit, and with 10 novelty wool sweaters, and in front of the onlookers and TV reporters, the capitalists promised each worker that the company would not only continue to recruit people in the near future, but also implement a series of new policies. For example, the policy of non-workers not working on duty means that as long as they are working in the workshop, they will not work on duty in the company. They will go to work when they have tasks and go home to rest if they do not have tasks. Another example is the performance pay system. The content of this system is that there is a financial settlement period every 6 months. During a financial settlement period, if the company's profit exceeds the profit of the financial plan, then 50% of the excess will be taken out and give bonuses to employees. It is said that the eyes of the masses are sharp. This sharpness often means that the people will not easily believe in various promises. They believe more in the benefits they get. This capitalist has made a lot of promises, so are there any specific benefits? Yes, there are so many. Those woolen sweaters are all imported from Japan, and they look like high-end goods at first glance. According to a knowledgeable person in the community who often travels around, this kind of woolen sweaters are sold in Guangdong, and each one costs more than 100 yuan. The money is almost as much as 1 month's salary. So, as the capitalists walked around the community, the tone of the previous discussion suddenly changed. Many people felt that working for the capitalists seemed to be quite good. At least in terms of remuneration, it was better than working for the country. Many countries will not give you fruits or sweaters. As for a salary increase, please, it all depends on seniority and professional title. There is never any so-called general adjustment point amid this discussion. The first branch of Gang Pharmaceutical paid wages for the first time 3 days later. Just as the capitalist promised, every worker's wage increased, and the increase was a penny by a penny. 100 yuan. Now those who work in gang medicine can receive at least 300 yuan in salary. You know, at that time, even the salary in enterprises and institutions was less than 200 yuan. This makes it difficult for people to stay calm. Everyone is in the same family area, doing the same work, but just because they have different employers, their treatment is so different. Is this justified? As a result, many people began to get upset. They believed that it was unfair, that they had worked for the country all their lives and still only received a salary of a few hundred rubles. The capitalists have all raised their wages. There is no reason why they, the employees of state-owned enterprises, should not have a raise. Otherwise, how would the superiority of socialism be reflected? At this time, no one considered that there were only a few dozen workers in Shakru's factory, and each person's salary increased by 100 yuan, which was only a few $1,000s. However, there were 30,000 workers in the industrial zone. If everyone raises their wages by 100 yuan, what will happen to these state-owned factories? What does it mean? You must know that most of the profits of state-owned enterprises have to be turned over to the government. Even if they are not turned over, all the profits are kept for themselves. Raising such a high salary for employees at one time means that the factory will have to increase 3 wages every month. With an expenditure of more than 1 million, the factory would be ruined if it were not a dirty stall. No one cares about the difficulties of the enterprise because they can't see it. All they see is that their treatment is lower than others, which is not good. So some people even began to preach that capitalism is better than socialism. However, they don't know that in the real capitalist market system, the only result of actions like Shakru is to be fined a huge amount by the relevant departments. Not only will they be fined to bankruptcy, but they will also be arrested and imprisoned for several years. However, in China at this time, it doesn't matter to do so, because there are no laws and regulations that match the reform and the market economy, and Shakru didn't want to use this to stir up the workers' emotions. Therefore, the biggest impact of his actions was that the number of applicants to the factory increased sharply, and the personnel department was overcrowded for a while. As the guide party who initially gave Shakru advice, Lu Han became the propaganda minister of the factory and also the most trusted Chinese person in the factory. Shakru's problem was solved, but another person's unlucky days began. This unlucky guy was Wu Mingqi, the former sales director of the pharmaceutical factory who fanned the flames behind the scenes. To be continued. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.